because it hurts people's feelings. Not uncommon for her to say, well, I guess my second daughter, Morgan, was nice enough to me last time we hung out. She goes, Dad, you're getting a little fat. And I said, thanks, doll. I appreciate that. Let me work better at that. And she's right. I am getting fat because I got a good cook and I got too much time on my hands, I guess. But yeah, when you can start having when I can have real conversations with, and it happens younger than 13, as soon as they start to have opinions and you can sort of, converse with them, that to me is the funnest time, because I'm still basically a 10-year-old kid when it comes to doing stuff. I still want to go and do laser tag, and I still like going to to play video games. And so now it's kind of like we get to do all that stuff together, and it's fun.
Oh man, it's just going to keep getting better and better.
That's right. All right, so let's talk a little bit about a subject that I'm very, very passionate about, and I don't know why we haven't discussed this earlier. Matt reminded me a few weeks ago about this book called The Fourth Turning. It's written by William Strauss and Neil Howell. Now, these two guys are
You're 6 minutes away from a live episode of Free Talk Live. Listen live at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the weekend in large parts of Germany and Belgium will be dominated by the continuing search and rescue operation following once-in-a-quarter-century floods that killed scores of people. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the tragedy proves the need to accentuate the global battle against climate change. 15,000 police and troops are now deployed in Germany. FSN's Trent Murray reported from one of the worst-hit towns.
I'm speaking to you from the village of Arweiler. One woman I spoke to said that she had little choice but to go to the roof of her house to try and wait out the rising floodwaters. And then tragically, as she was evacuated, she actually saw the body of her neighbour.
In South Africa, more than 100 people died in a week of violence and looting, sparked by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma. He's serving a 15-month sentence for contempt of court. But the rioters were also expressing frustration over the government's response to COVID-19, and many were simply out to steal whatever they could get their hands on. FSN's Cape Town bureau reporter is Mark Roughton.
Monday night, images of ongoing looting were broadcast live alongside President Cyril Ramaphosa's address to the nation. He says that government will restore law and order in affected areas, but for hundreds of retailers, it is already too late.
The stage is set for British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to lift remaining COVID-19 restrictions in England on Monday, but the government's top scientific advisor says the number of people in hospital with coronavirus could reach quite scary levels within weeks. Professor Chris Whitty told a Science Museum webinar the UK is not out of the woods.
At the moment, the number of cases in hospital is mercifully much lower than it was previously, but not trivial. If we double from 2,000 to 4,000, and 4,000 to 8,000, to 8,000, and so on, it doesn't take many doubling times till you're into very, very large numbers indeed. And the doubling time at the moment is probably around about 3 weeks.
Cuba saw the most brazen protests against the communist government for many years, with police being pelted with bottles and stones. President Biden warned the government in Havana to heed the voices of the demonstrators. He also this week refused to send troops to Haiti, despite a request from the government there in the aftermath of the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse. President Biden turned his attention this week to American democracy and the threat he claims is posed by Republican attempts in several states to rewrite election laws.
There's an unfolding assault, an attempt to suppress and subvert the right to vote in fair and free elections.
The president said battling to safeguard democracy will be the cause of his presidency, though his spokeswoman conceded he has no legislative strategy for achieving that. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Investors on Wall Street will focus on corporate earnings in the week ahead on Wall Street, but inflation jitters are likely still to linger. From FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo reports.
Last week, some of the major US banks released quarterly numbers as earnings season gets into full swing. It's slated to be a lighter week this week for economic data, and earnings are set to be a major focus for Wall Street analysts. Investors are expecting strong figures across the board this season, with companies benefiting from pent-up consumer demand as COVID-19 restrictions ease. This week, Netflix, Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola and Intel are among some of the big firms set to report. William Denzelo, New York.
A growing number of Californians will start the week wearing face masks again indoors amid a sharp rise in COVID-19 cases caused by the Delta variant. Los Angeles is mandating the wearing of face masks just a month after lifting almost all restrictions. From FSN's bureau in San Francisco, Ara Spitzer reports.
The new mask order will go into effect over the weekend and reflects officials' growing alarm at the recent rapid spread of the highly transmissible Delta coronavirus variant. Almost 70% of people over 16 in the U.S.'s most populous county are vaccinated, but there are still pockets of unvaccinated residents who remain at high risk. The county's COVID-19 hospitalizations have also ticked up, although they're still at around 5% compared to the levels in January.
In the coming week, we'll keep a close eye on the COVID-19 situation in England as restrictions are lifted. We'll see if the US ends its travel ban on visitors from the EU. And we'll cover the opening ceremony of the Tokyo Olympics on Friday. Those stories here and on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
It's now been 7 days since a group of hikers went missing in Maine's Acadia National Park. The rescue crews there are still holding out hope of finding them alive. Autistic reporter Michael Falk is on the scene there. Michael.
Hello, Brooke. My socks got wet. That cameraman gave me new socks. I am fine.
That's good, Michael, but what's the situation there?
The names of the hikers are Casey Allman, Brian Emery, Ashley Thorson. The hikers were last seen 174 hours ago. Since then, 3 very big storms have hit here. There's a 1.24% chance that all of the hikers are alive. Why are you looking for the hikers?
Well, we're still hopeful that we might be able to find them. There's been a break in the weather, so we're hoping that.
Over the past 7 days, the average high temperature has been 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Over the past 7 days, the average low temperature has been 6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right. So we did another sweep of the park from the air, but we didn't see anything.
Without shelter, the human body can withstand temperatures this cold for a maximum of 3 hours. Is there shelter in the forest for the hikers?
Not that we know of.
They're frozen.
Well, we like
Shh. This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. Take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever you want. 603-283-6160 is the number to do that. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
And I want to talk about boredom because it's such an interesting subject to me.
Boring.
Yeah, right. I really don't remember. The last time I was bored was probably actually when I was sitting in jail and there wasn't really anything to do to occupy myself with. But that aside, I don't recall being bored in well over a year. So I don't see myself ever returning to that state of allowing myself time to be bored again. There's always something I could be doing that would be productive in one way or another. To me, boredom is a gap that exists only when people run out of or think they run out of productive things to do.
Are you addicted to overstimulation?
Possibly.
You don't allow yourself that downtime.
Well, I mean, define downtime, right? Because I spent like an hour and a half reading today.
Okay.
And that was downtime, but I wasn't bored. I didn't read because I was bored. I read because I wanted to.
If you're bored while reading, you're reading the wrong book.
Also a valid point. But in 2014, psychologists at the University of Virginia conducted a simple experiment to showcase the power of the human mind. And my favorite thing about this is that psychologists conducted this study, and the whole idea of the study proves that these psychologists don't understand the human brain or how people function. They placed subjects in a room by themselves with no distractions for roughly 10 minutes, letting them be alone with their thoughts. Given the infinite possibilities that our imaginations hold, it aimed to promote the sheer pleasures we can derive from just thinking.
That's a long time, man. Like
10 minutes or just, yeah.
So here's what I know about myself now at this point in my life. with all of the devices that I'm surrounded myself with, that something has to be like in my face at all. Like, so I get off of my normal job.
So you're a stimulation junkie.
I might be an addiction at this point, but I try to like take a few minutes. So I get off of work at 5 at my regular job. So a few minutes before 5, I start my final closing procedures and I start putting away like my phone and my tablet and whatever. And I'm sitting there and like 10 seconds goes by. I'm like, I need to look at something. Like, how am I going to make it another 5.5 minutes, with nothing to do? And so like the phone comes back out. I'm like, all right, I'll just doom scroll for a few minutes because 10 minutes, man, forget about it.
Man, I have enough things in my head that I could just like process and correlate data for 10 minutes pretty easy.
Okay.
I mean, I can think about stuff.
And I can't, like when I go to the gym, like I'll do like 20 minutes on the elliptical, but I have earbuds in. And sometimes it's background noise because that's when I always do my thinking. So I won't really pay attention to, the podcast that I'm listening to, but I do think there, but there's always some sort of stimulus in the background.
I'm on the other side of that. Like I listen to podcasts all the time, not because I'm bored without them, but because I just want to know so many things, and there are so many good things to learn and listen to out there. Like if I'm just wasting time, then like I could be learning stuff.
See, I'm with Rich on this one. There is almost never silence at my house. There's almost always music going. It's just general background noise. I'm not actively listening to it, but it's there and it's playing. Yeah. And I don't know. It's just comforting to have the noise, the familiarity, I guess.
Yeah.
Even if I'm just reading or just sitting there, or I don't usually just sit there and think and listen to music. I'm sort of in between both of you.
That's what I'm saying. It's an overstimulation thing.
Well, and music is a little different, but like when it comes to conversation, I either want to be in or out. Like I want to be engaged in even if it's not my conversation, in what I'm listening to, or I don't want it to be there.
So you're an eavesdropper.
No, I'm quite the opposite. Okay. Quite the opposite. Like if so, like some people will like put on the TV to go to sleep, and I do not get that. Like the
I have to do that because otherwise my brain doesn't stop.
Oh, that might be the issue.
I mean, the brain, the television shuts down one's brain and allows me to fall asleep.
See, and I'm with Peakless on this because my wife does that, turns on the TV to fall asleep, and like when I'm ready to sleep, silence and darkness. Like that's it. I'm ready to I can shut it all off. But if she's got it going, like I'm on the couch.
Yeah,
forget about it.
I used to have
I'm going
that
where it's quiet and dark.
Where if there was nothing going on, my brain would just start chattering and chattering and chattering. Figure out meditation, and it is a skill.
Well, I meditate daily.
Can you quiet the mind then?
Yes, but not if I'm attempting to fall asleep.
Huh.
The two goals are not related, I'm clearing my mind for one purpose in order to find peace. The other one, I'm trying to find sleep. To me, sleep is just a tool.
Well,
it's just a thing.
Peace seems a pretty good state to pursue sleep from.
It isn't. It's a good state to pursue living my life. But to give you an example of the way that I use both meditation and sleep, as soon as I wake up, the television turns off. It comes on before I go to sleep, and it goes off when I wake up. And meditation is sort of the same thing. I meditate, and then I go about my day. I don't end my day.
Yeah. Peculiar.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's one of those, like, I meditated enough that it became a reflex to quiet the mind. So then when I just, go to sleep, as soon as I've actually decided to go to sleep, which is frequently an argument with myself of like, no, I don't want to go to sleep yet. But once I've actually decided that it's time to go to sleep, then, the mind, I've gotten used to quieting my mind enough that it just kind of does it automatically.
I guess that's cool. But when I do it, it's sort of a prepping for the day sort of thing. So I guess just different goals of the meditative process.
Yeah. I'll listen to a guided meditation if I can't sleep.
Never given that a shot. But I mean, television turns on 5 minutes later, I'm out. So
yeah,
it works for me. But this psychologist doesn't know how people work. We thought this would be great. People are so busy that it would give them a chance to slow down, sit quietly, and daydream for a few minutes, said Aaron Westgate, a young graduate student at the time. So we started running these studies, and they were complete failures.
Bouncing off the walls.
How do you get that far into psychology without knowing exactly what the outcome of this is going to be with the average human being? 30 seconds into this, they're going to want a phone.
Well, yeah. The people that look into books are not always the people that look around.
Good point.
Which is an unfortunate lack of overlap when it comes to psychology.
It turns out that people hated it. They found the experience so unpleasant, many of them preferred physical pain over the discomfort of boredom.
I've seen that.
When given the opportunity to self-administer a mild electric shock with a button, just to keep themselves interested, 67% of men and 25% of women pressed it at least once to help pass the time.
No, Mark, we're going to go with the physical challenge.
No, I totally remember, like, in school, if you're, like, waiting to see the principal or, you know, something where you just have to, like, sit there and do nothing, there were people who would, like, you know, jam their pencil into their leg because it beats being bored.
So this might this might date me a little bit, but the old cell phones where the charger actually produced an electric signal, right? Like not the USB stuff. So I had, you know, the car charger, and I would get bored at stoplights, just dab that thing on my tongue, like
a 9-volt battery, right?
Right, exactly. Just like, you know, just to make it through the red light, and then wait till the light turns green. Like, okay, drop it, and we're off and running again. So.
One particularly miserable person shocked himself an incredible 190 times.
In 10 minutes.
In 10 minutes, yes.
Impressive.
He must have been bored. These unexpected and somewhat disturbing results motivated Westgate to devote her research career to the science of boredom. She wondered how a mundane, almost childlike state could prompt such surprisingly extreme behavior.
Because children have a very active imagination, right? They can sit there with nothing and their mind runs it. But, you know, as adults, we lose that a little bit. And as an overstimulated society, right, with, again, all the devices, there's so much stimuli out there that any downtime is just too much. It's uncontrollable.
People aren't just more willing to hurt themselves when they're bored. More recent work has shown that they're more willing to hurt others and behave sadistically by docking other participants' pay or grinding up bugs in a coffee grinder if given the choice. It's terrible. More coming up about the subject of boredom, and because it's not just, you know, oh, people prefer pain over boredom, it's actually linked to mental illness, and we're going to get into that, but you're welcome to join the discussion. 603-283-6160. More coming up. This is Free Talk Live.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering FreePrivateCities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at FreePrivateCities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. FreePrivateCities.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you ever say, I could care less when you really mean the opposite. You mean to say, I couldn't care less. It's a common mistake. You are judged by how you speak, especially if you're looking for work, with so many more applicants than openings now. But even if you're not, avoiding common misstatements will help you make the most of the dozens of conversations and transactions that crowd your daily routine. So whatever you say, don't say whatever as a single word sentence. It's the most annoying expression in the American English language, according to a recent poll. And avoid cliches like the plague. Just kidding. But seriously, at the end of the day, you'll want to avoid this scenario, sounding like everyone else. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to join the discussion. We're talking about boredom. And if you're bored, then I would suggest learning something. You can do that at bitcoin.com. Click get started at the top of the page, and you can watch a number of short videos there that will teach you the very basics of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because this is world-changing technology. It's definitely time to learn about it. Bitcoin.com is the best place to do that. But if you already know about cryptocurrency, then check out news.bitcoin.com. They have all the latest headlines there for you that are relevant to your world. News.bitcoin.com. Now,
the problem with Bitcoin is you can't roll it across your knuckles like a quarter when you're bored.
No, you can't. Well, I guess you
Worthless.
What about the Crustaceous ones?
Okay.
Solid gold, specialty collectors Bitcoins.
Fair enough if you want to pay a premium for the knuckle rolling.
You know, if it's that valuable to you.
It's better than an electric shock, I'll tell you that much.
Boredom is a distressing emotional state that combines feelings of restlessness and lethargy, arising from situations that are no longer satisfying or stimulating. Early research often dismissed boredom as temporary and inconsequential, but recent work has established its link to mental illness, traumatic brain injury, and dysfunctional behavior such as reckless driving and substance abuse. Some experts believe the feeling is a modern phenomenon driven by technology and a constant overload of meaningless stimulation, but historical literature proves that even our counterparts in ancient times had the burden of tedium to bear. The poet and philosopher Lucretius described the plight of the Roman rich in his most famous work, On the Nature of Things, as he flees from city house to country home to escape a lingering sense of dissatisfaction. In the 4th century, theologian Ponticus warned his fellow monks about the noonday demon, a passing feeling of exhaustion and good God, why would they even use it? Listlessness. Why would they even use that word, man?
Listlessness.
Because it's English?
Try saying that 10 times fast.
Try saying it once.
Listlessness?
Listlessness.
Okay.
Even with the tongue ring.
I hate you both. Early scientific studies
The trick is to skip the T.
No, she enunciates everything.
Early scientific studies focused on boredom in the workplace, particularly at jobs involving repetitive tasks. They this got really boring really quickly for an article that was going to be about boredom, and I don't want to talk.
Okay.
But it's boring now. They're just recounting historical accounts of people who were bored.
Right.
That it's boring to hear about people who wrote about being bored.
I always wondered what my parents did when they were bored, and I asked my 25 brothers and sisters, and they didn't know either.
So anyway, let's get into something that's not boring. I don't know what I expected. I guess an article about boredom was destined to become boring.
Or at least tips and tricks on how to avoid that without overstimulating yourself with, technology.
Also would have been good.
Yeah.
But you have an awesome article I want to get into. Speaking of people who are bored, there's this British intel leak from this gamer. Presumably, he plays games to avoid being bored.
Which is a good idea. Yeah.
I play games myself. But he was playing some first-person shooter, I guess. Do you have the article in front of you?
I did not have that one ready, but give me a minute.
Yeah, sure.
And I will.
To summarize it for people, what this guy did, he was unhappy with how Russian developers had created this tank in the game that he was playing.
Right. All right, here we go. Accuracy at any cost. Gamer leaks British military secrets to company founded in Russia to prove its tank model is wrong. So he just wanted to be right on the internet.
Right.
Right.
Classic nerd, by the way.
Nerd.
So obsessed with being right.
Nerds.
He sent these.
The road to damnation is paved with wanting to be right on the internet.
It really is, though.
A gamer believed to be a Challenger 2 commander has apparently decided that preserving British state secrets is less important than proving to a game company that its digital model of his country's main battle tank is inaccurate. A funny and potentially criminal episode unfolded this week on the forums of War Thunder.
I'm curious, if this is their most popular tank, how does the Russian gaming company not get it right?
Well, because he has specialized knowledge of how it's supposed to be that's not available to the public.
Okay.
Right. So there's you get a picture of it from public view as the developing company, right? If you're not contracted with the military, you go like, looks like this. And this nerd goes like, the button's not supposed to be over there. But the on switch is over here, and this one. And so,
he's used to driving this thing, and there he is driving it. He's like, no, you got it all wrong.
Right. So just from my own personal experience, not with this, right? But there was an old game for I think it was the Xbox 360, Test Drive. And it was supposed to be the map of Oahu in Hawaii.
Okay.
Right. So I'm like, oh, cool. I live there. I get to drive around. And so I tried to find my house in the game. Nothing like it. Just like they got the outline of the island, remotely correct, but none of the roads made sense. None of the streets were accurate, like Streets of LA.
Did they advertise it as, this is supposed to be Oahu?
Yeah. It was Oahu, but it just, the roads were somewhat similar, but not the same.
You'd think they could go on Google Maps or something like that and get it right.
And maybe with today's technology, they could actually do it. But again, we're talking about, 2 generations ago for video games. It probably wasn't there to be, road specific and building specific. But they go like, oh yeah, just driving, here you go. So I understand how this guy felt.
Did you email them? And
No.
Like, hey, you got this wrong?
No. I just went, okay, that was a bit of a disappointment, and I played the game anyway because if you ignore that aspect of it, it's a fun enough game.
Some people, when they see someone doing it wrong, they really feel the need to tell them you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, but not to this extent.
It's no, this drive's totally different.
No, this is mind blowing because as I understand, he could have just emailed the developer like, hey, I happen to know that this is not correct. You need to come up with a way of reconfiguring these because this isn't the correct way. But he went so much further than that.
Yeah. Criminal episode unfolded on the forums of War Thunder, popular competitive video game in which players take control of various real-life military vehicles.
So he did this in a gaming forum online for the whole world to see. So he didn't even email the company.
Well, it's probably a back and forth. Projects like this one attract the attention of accuracy nerds who push designers to get every little detail right. It seems one such person may have breached the UK Official Secrets Act by leaking a portion of the still classified manual for the Challenger 2 main battle tank. On Wednesday, the user posted on the forum a link to excerpts from the Challenger 2 AESP Army Equipment Support publication as he argued his point to developers. The alleged leak was reported by the UK Defence Journal on Friday. The military-focused website said the poster identifies as a Challenger 2 commander and may be stationed at the Royal Tank Regiment in Tidworth, England.
Okay, so here's what I don't get there, though. He posts this link, and that is somehow leaking secrets?
Well, presumably
it's a link to the manual.
Okay, well, it sounds to me like you were doing bad security. Like, if this thing's classified, then you shouldn't let people on without, like, a login.
What you're assuming that he didn't, like, save a copy of the manual to his hard drive and then upload it to, like, Dropbox or something, which he very well may have done.
Yeah, I don't know where the link goes. Like, I don't know if it was a publicly available link.
I noticed they didn't reproduce it in the article.
I can't say I blame them. What are your thoughts on having to be right all the time? It might get this guy arrested. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in on it. That's 603-283-6160.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the weekend in large parts of Germany and Belgium will be dominated by the continuing search and rescue operation following once-in-a-quarter-century floods that killed scores of people. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the tragedy proves the need to accentuate the global battle against climate change. 15,000 police and troops are now deployed in Germany. FSN's Trent Murray reported from one of the worst-hit towns.
I'm speaking to you from the village of Ahrweiler. One woman I spoke to said that she had little choice but to go to the roof of her house to try and wait out the rising floodwaters. And then tragically, as she was evacuated, she actually saw the body of her neighbour.
In South Africa, more than 100 people died in a week of violence and looting, sparked by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma. He's serving a 15-month sentence for contempt of court. But the rioters were also expressing frustration over the government's response to COVID-19, and many were simply out to steal whatever they could get their hands on. FSN's Cape Town bureau reporter is Mark Roughton.
Monday night, images of ongoing looting were broadcast live alongside President Cyril Ramaphosa's address to the nation. He says that government will restore law and order in affected areas, but for hundreds of retailers, it is already too late.
The stage is set for British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to lift remaining COVID-19 restrictions in England on Monday, but the government's top scientific advisor says the number of people in hospital with coronavirus could reach quite scary levels within weeks. Professor Chris Whitty told a Science Museum webinar the UK is not out of the woods.
At the moment, the number of cases in hospital is mercifully much lower than it was previously, but not trivial. If we double from 2,000 to 4,000, and 4,000 to 8,000, 8,000, and so on, it doesn't take many doubling times till you're into very, very large numbers indeed. And the doubling time at the moment is probably around about 3 weeks.
Cuba saw the most brazen protests against the communist government for many years, with police being pelted with bottles and stones. President Biden warned the government in Havana to heed the voices of the demonstrators. He also this week refused to send troops to Haiti, despite a request from the government there in the aftermath of the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse. President Biden turned his attention this week to American democracy and the threat he claims is posed by Republican attempts in several states to rewrite election laws.
There's an unfolding assault, an attempt to suppress and subvert the right to vote and fair and free elections.
The president said battling to safeguard democracy will be the cause of his presidency, though his spokeswoman conceded he has no legislative strategy for achieving that. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You're welcome to join the discussion, take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever you want, because that's what we do here on Free Talk Live. We let you express your opinions on close to 200 radio stations, as well as on the internet. 603-283-6160 is the number to do that. That's 603-283-6160. And I didn't actually mean to get into the Gamer article. I just, realized that the boredom thing was boring, so I skipped down and I looked down at my notes, and I was like, ooh, British Intel leak. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's called priming, by the way.
What's that?
So here we are talking about boredom, and it makes your brain think of boredom, and then you become much more likely to become bored.
Well, the article was boring.
Well, that doesn't help.
I don't
Objectively, the article was boring.
I can't imagine very many people got all the way through that. I mean, it's just dull, and it drags on, listing all of these examples of people from the Roman Empire who were bored at one point or another. It's like, okay, you don't have to convince me that human beings have always, since the dawn of civilization at least, have found times to be bored. That's an idea that doesn't have to be sold.
And it doesn't have anything to do with your premise. Your premise is that it's linked to mental illness and psychological disorders and that sort of thing. Like, giving me these examples of people being bored and doing terrible things, okay. Like,
sure.
I really thought it was going to lead into like the boredom of bureaucracy and why those people get like violent and crazy.
It went on for 8 or 9 paragraphs before it actually got into anything related to mental illness, and then it seemed to present boredom.
It's designed to give you mental illness.
Perhaps.
It's a psyop.
It suggested that boredom is a result of mental illness rather than the other way around, and I tend to think they probably need to do more research. But again, I didn't finish reading the article, so I don't know. Maybe they should just write less boring articles.
Be entertaining if you want people to read your articles.
That is a good rule.
Science news.
But there are entertaining things happening, and one of those is another story that you brought in, Rich, about a woman in Utah being charged with a hate crime for stomping on a Blue Lives Matter. What was it?
It was a sign. It was a sign, not a flag or anything like that.
Was it her sign?
We can get into it. I don't recall exactly. This case is yet another instance of law enforcement using hate crime enhancements to punish people for criticizing them. A 19-year-old Utah woman has been charged with a hate crime for allegedly stomping on a Back the Blue sign in front of a police officer, the Salt Lake Tribune reports.
Oh,
I'm going to assume it wasn't hers, because I don't know if you would make a sign just to
sure,
rip it up or stomp on it.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So it's destruction of property, sure.
Yeah. But
not
a
hate crime.
Yeah. According to the affidavit obtained by the Tribune, a Garfield County Sheriff's deputy was conducting a traffic stop at a gas station in Panguitch, Utah on Wednesday when he saw the woman stomping on a Back the Blue sign next to where the traffic stop was conducted.
Was she like intentionally doing this to how people will flip off cops? Was she like, oh, here's your stupid sign and I'm going to destroy it in front of you? Or did she just happen to see the sign and destroyed it because she hated it?
It seems like they were unrelated, right?
Okay.
Like they were probably doing some kind of sign waving event. She was stomping the sign, and then he was at an unrelated traffic stop and then witnessed the stomping of the sign.
This is my issue with hate crime law entirely. And I've got to agree with the South Park take on this is, yes, the woman destroyed the sign because she hated the sign and what it represents. No one commits any crime without hating the victim of that crime. You can't murder someone without hating them. You can't destroy a sign without hating the sign.
I don't know. Okay. I could steal a candy bar, not because I hate Safeway, but because I want a candy bar. I mean, I obviously don't respect Safeway if I'm going to do that, but...
Yeah.
But why would you want to steal when you could pay for one?
Because candy is delicious. Oh, and why not pay for one?
Yeah.
Well, because I like money.
Okay.
He's okay. I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's a very skewed sense of morality when it comes to like state fictions.
I'm not suggesting this is moral.
Okay.
I'm just saying that a person doesn't necessarily have to hate their the victim of their crime in order to aggress against them.
And I want to say it's my understanding from past conversations, public or private, I don't want to get into it, where the case was made that because they were agents or linked to the state, that it was not immoral to take from the grocery store.
Well, the morality of it aside, you can't steal from Costco because Costco is a fictitious entity that doesn't own anything.
And I think he would make that similar case for Safeway.
Well,
so
and
if that's true,
he said Safeway. I thought he said Costco.
Let's go with Costco. So yeah, I mean, given the fact that they're a corporation and therefore an extension of the state, that is a moral gray area right there.
And the only reason to pay them is because you want to go back without harassment.
I don't agree or disagree, but if we're talking about something minor like that, you could certainly cause someone some sort of an injury without hating them. But I don't buy for a moment that
was my point.
That you could steal $30,000 from someone without hating them.
Okay,
you
Really?
can't love that person.
You can't love that person. I totally agree.
And I don't know how you could not hate them in order to wrong them in such a major way.
Apathy.
I don't want to get hung up on like the legal terminology of murder either, because I do think that you can have a mercy killing if someone is in pain and suffering.
Sure.
Okay.
But you're not doing them wrong in that case.
Right. But that's why you said you can't murder someone without hating them. And do we need to hash out the definition of murder? Because I do think you can kill someone and love them at the same time.
There's definitely the implication of it being involuntary.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's got to be involuntary to qualify as murder.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's part of it.
Okay.
But yeah, you're absolutely right that killing a person isn't necessarily a loveless act.
Right. That's what I'm suggesting.
But destroying this sign, I think it's fair to assume the woman did this out of hatred of the sign and what it represented.
So
yeah,
I mean, it is a sign.
She might not even hate the sign. She just hates what it represents.
I have two issues here. Number one, it is none of my business what your motivations are. And
motivations are everything.
I mean,
if I were to push you down, that would be wrong. But if I were to push you out of the way of a train, that would be right. Motivation is everything. The motive behind why I pushed you is far more important than the fact that I pushed you.
Well,
you should support.
So
hate
pushing
crimes,
me
then.
into a train, even if you meant to do me good, is not okay.
And that is not in the scenario that I presented. I said pushing you down versus pushing you out of the way of a train. Pushing you down would be immoral. I'm motivated then by being immoral, by causing you some sort of bodily harm. But pushing you out of the way of a train, I'm motivated by saving your life.
Well, what if you thought there was a train when you pushed me down?
Well, then I was wrong. Then I was still pushing you out of the way of a train, and it's up to you whether or not to accept that I thought a train was coming. But address the actual scenario that I presented, please.
Extend this out then, because we're talking about hate crimes. You said you don't really support hate crimes, but if motivation is everything, you should. Because hate crimes are usually motivated by the hatred of the, status of that person for whatever reason, whether, gay or police or whatever.
Well, so, for example, if you are doing something in a cold, calculated attempt to get an outcome, it to me isn't any better than if you do something out of pure seething hatred.
I don't know what that has. I don't know where to go from that.
Okay.
I don't agree or disagree.
So give an example of what you would consider a hate crime.
I don't consider any crime to be a hate crime. I think hate crime is a silly legal fiction that should be done away with.
All right, fair enough.
But if the only reason I attack that dude is because he's a black guy,
then you attack that dude and you should be charged for attacking that dude.
Understood. Yeah. But you just said motivation is everything. My motivation was
motivation is
black.
everything to the victim.
Okay.
But whether that should have any impact on the legal outcome is irrelevant, in my opinion. My hurt feelings about your motivation shouldn't affect how other people view what you did.
Okay.
It should just affect my feelings about it. Oh, man, that sucks. He attacked me because I'm trans or whatever. But at the end of the day, you attacked me, and that's the part people should address, in my opinion. The fact that you're a person who's willing to attack.
I think I'm clear on your position now.
Well, what are your thoughts? 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in on the subject. 603-283-6160. More coming up about this All Police Matters. I don't remember what the sign said. Back the Blue. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
The idea that politicians are leaders. Check your premises on that one.
Cutting proof.
Really? Would you really follow Barack Obama or George Bush? Would you really follow their every command? Would you follow their suggestions? Do you believe that politicians are somehow more knowledgeable than you are? That politicians are of a special group of people? They're a special little critter that for some reason is more enlightened or educated? Constantly you can hear talking heads refer to the authorities or our leaders in Washington, and it's just patently absurd. I mean, these people are failures at life. That's why they became politicians.
Right. There's so many of them are attorneys. The good attorneys make
money.
Whole bunch of money and retire with yachts. The unsuccessful ones go into politics.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to join the conversation. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
Beagless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
And we're talking about hate crimes here. And I've always been against the existence of hate crimes because although it would it would be of significant meaning to me why someone attacked me, I don't feel that if there is going to be a legal system, it should let that sort of thing play into the possible consequences of them doing that. And I think the matter can be more easily addressed by just teaching people basic morality. Don't punch people. That obviously includes trans people, gay people, black people, white people, Chinese people, Asian people in general.
But Nazis are okay.
No, it's not okay to punch Nazis. I actually did a debate with, God, I don't remember the guy's name now, about this a few years ago, where he was basically just trotting out all of these arguments about why they're not even people anymore. They're just totally dehumanized, and it's okay to punch them because they represent a very real threat. But they don't in any meaningful sense of the word in the modern world. Open Nazis will never achieve political power again.
Maybe, because open communists are now doing so.
True, but they haven't been
but
stigmatized.
the communists won the war, you see.
Oh, okay. Is that how that works?
That is exactly how that works. And I wanted to correct, I misspoke earlier. I didn't mean that the intention doesn't matter. I meant the motivation doesn't matter. Like, I don't care what your motivation for doing a terrible thing is. If you are motivated to punch a guy because he's black or because he's that particular person who you don't like, really doesn't make any difference to me.
No, either way, you should have the moral reservation to not attack people.
Right.
And once that's broken, once you're willing to attack one person because you view them as, somehow lesser or whatever, then you're ultimately going to be willing to attack anyone. It's just a matter of convincing you to look down on them in some manner.
That's how they do it.
I know. And we need to stop it entirely. Okay. Get rid of the hate crime laws. Just, hey, no, you don't get to punch people under any circumstances.
That's like the entire premise of how international wars are fought.
Well, so
that dude over there, less than human.
Since we're talking about punching Nazis, here's a question, though. So if someone is actively attempting to convince society at large that another person does not count as a human, and therefore does not have, philosophical agency or, the right to anything, does that count as a threat to that person?
I can't answer that. It would depend on many more factors than I have the answers to. What is this person's reach? Is this a person like Chris Cantwell who's screaming into a microphone for maybe a few hundred people, most of whom hate him? Or is this someone like Richard Spencer, who prior to what I would characterize as his downfall was a prominent, maybe not Nazi, but definitely on the alt-right. And they certainly did portray Hispanic immigrants as being subhuman. So was that a threat? Yes. But is it a threat because they were explicitly dehumanizing Hispanics, or because I would again have to say it doesn't matter, because it's still wrong to commit actions against those people.
So it's kind of a question of how credible is the threat? Like,
well, very much so.
If your speaking will be likely to actually strip me of my rights and people's views, then yes, that's an attack.
So how credible is the threat? Yes. But also, does that then absolve the actual attacker of their responsibility? Right? Like if I order someone to do something, but I don't carry it out, if I go punch Arya and you punch her, you're responsible, but am I responsible?
Absolutely. Okay. I think that
both parties?
Yes.
Equal?
100%. Both of you are equally 100% responsible. So it's one of those things where, like,
I didn't punch her. There was
spreading it doesn't alleviate it. So if I tell you to tell Arya to murder someone, and she does, then she's on the hook for murder, you're on the hook for murder, and I'm on the hook for murder.
But is that because that's how you view the world, or because that's how the legal system works?
Oh, that's not how the legal system works. Legal system doesn't work.
Okay. Sure, it doesn't work.
Well, honestly, it's one of those things where if you just look at the incentives, like, okay, if it is any other way, then all of the incentives are to... if the crime lessens from involving more people, then all of the incentive is to just involve as many people as possible in whatever crime you want to commit.
I don't have any opinion. That's something I have to sit and reflect on, and I can't do that in the middle of a live radio show.
Fair enough.
But I certainly agree that the foot soldiers on the ground who carried out the actual executions of the Jews were at least as responsible as the propaganda masters who convinced them to hate the Jews to that degree. But at the end of the day, if they operated from a position of morality where, hey, even if you don't view this person as a full human being, it's still wrong to aggress against people.
Well, that's why I might disagree a little bit, because individuals act and individuals decide, right? So you can choose not to follow orders, right? You can choose to act morally, and I go, well, punch her, and you go, no, not going to do it. And then then you're off the hook, and I'm off the hook too, because you didn't carry out the order.
No, you attempted.
I didn't attempt anything.
You're not on the hook for assault. Okay. You're on the hook for attempted assault.
For a threat?
Well, so it's the same as if you swung at her and missed.
And again, I have to ask, is this how the legal system works, or is this your view of how things should work?
I have no idea how the legal system works.
I think this is more
as far
theoretical.
as I can tell, it doesn't work at all.
The legal system clearly does not operate like that, depending on how high you go in like the level of politics.
Yeah, I'm discussing morality, not legality, because the legal system has all sorts of workarounds where some people can murder and commit genocide and other people can't.
I have to go right back to credibility of the threats here. Like, if Rich told you to punch me and you chose not to, I don't believe he would be guilty of attempted assault at all on any moral grounds, because that was never a credible threat.
Well, in this case, I would assume that it was a joke.
Sure.
And that's different.
Well, presume it's credible for the sake of the discussion, right? We're trying
for the sake of the discussion.
Yeah. Like I have said before, when it comes to like how the legal system works, right? Either Charles Manson should have been let go, or all the presidents should be guilty of war crimes.
Well, they're all guilty of war crimes. Yes, that's a given.
Because they ordered it, but they didn't carry it out. They killed no one.
Probably.
Well, okay, maybe Hillary Clinton. To a lesser extent.
Washington and Lincoln, I mean, they were pretty heavily involved in the wars they fought, at the very least.
Well, those, sure.
I think Eisenhower was a general at one point, so he probably has a few kills under his belt.
Okay.
But sure, I mean, even if all of them had never actually taken anyone's life, every single president in American history is a war criminal.
But if the legal
including
system,
Joe Biden, by the way.
But if the legal system allows them to go free, right, then the mass murderer who killed no one, right, but it was just small time, should also have been extended that same courtesy.
Well, see, his religion.
If he had been in politics, he might have.
He would have. I guarantee he would. He'd be powerful in other ways if he had gone into politics instead.
Well, the issue is that people worship the state and they didn't worship Manson.
Okay.
So he was a criminal, but the laws don't apply to the government. You see,
That's what I'm
because
saying.
they're special.
Yeah.
They're the chosen ones, the anointed. They are the ones who carry out the will of God here on earth.
Right.
And the will of God is just this fictitious entity called the state.
But for consistency, the people who would defend the politicians and say like, oh no, they're perfectly fine to do what they do, right? They should also be consistent with the mass murderer who orders killings instead of, or like, the what is it? The head of the drug cartel.
He didn't have the will of the people, Rich.
Drug cartel leaders, right? Like they ordered hits. They don't actually hit anybody.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Same thing. If they're criminals, so are the politicians.
If they'd had the will of the people, then they'd be morally justified in doing so.
So all they got to do is run for office.
But you're not wrong. I mean, these people are doing insane mental gymnastics in order to exclude, George W. Bush and Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Donald Trump from being war criminals. While at the same time, they say, no, Charles Manson was definitely a murderer.
Yeah, or El Chapo, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
But that's what religions do to people. They present them with contradictions and they work out these ways around it in their head that don't make any sense, and they don't have to be logically consistent because their faith doesn't require logic. It just requires them to believe and to obey.
That's the big one. Obedience.
Well, and I mean, you can't measure the will of the people. It's just something that you assign religiously.
Look,
Yes.
Joe Biden got more votes than anyone in history. That is clearly the will of the people. That is measurable.
It's the will of some people, I guess, but what are the people, right? I'm not included in that. I didn't vote for him. I don't remember who I voted for, but it certainly wasn't Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
He is executing the will of over 80 million people.
Sure he is.
Well, he's ignoring the will of significantly larger numbers of people. But what are your thoughts? You can join the conversation. The number for that is 603-283-6160. There's more coming up here about hate crimes and this Back the Blue sign. It's Free Talk Live.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Sarah Walton. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has visited the scene of devastating floods in Germany that have claimed the lives of at least 180 people. Rescue operations are still underway while more heavy rain is hitting the region. Our correspondent Trent Murray is in Germany.
Well, there remains an absolute extraordinary amount of debris and destruction littered across this large area of northwest Germany. These floodwaters first hit the region on Wednesday, and ever since then, rescue crews have been desperately trying to search the area for survivors. Chancellor Angela Merkel visited the region on Sunday, and she was visibly shocked herself. She, in fact, said she doesn't think there is even a word in the German language to describe how much destruction there is.
At least 30 people have died in Mumbai after torrential rainfall triggered landslides, causing a wall and several houses to collapse. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued a warning that more heavy rain is on the way. Rebecca Bundhun reports from Mumbai.
India's financial capital over the weekend was hit hard by very heavy rainfall, which caused flooding in many parts of the city. A landslide led to a wall collapsing on several houses, while other homes gave way in another suburban area due to landslides. Rescue teams worked to free those trapped under the rubble. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted that he was saddened by the loss of lives and promised financial compensation for the families of the victims. It's currently the monsoon season, which leads to hundreds of deaths in India each year. Rebecca Bundhun, Mumbai.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has gone into self-isolation after the country's health minister tested positive for COVID-19. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, is also going into quarantine, even though they've both been fully vaccinated. The pair sparked anger by initially saying they wouldn't self-isolate and would instead take part in a pilot scheme being run in the UK that allows a select few people to take part in daily coronavirus testing instead. Boris Johnson released a video statement shortly after the U-turn.
We did look briefly at the idea of us taking part in the pilot scheme, which allows people to test daily, but I think it's far more important that everybody sticks to the same rules, and that's why I'm going to be self-isolating until the 26th of July. I know how frustrating it all is, but I really do urge everybody to stick with the programme.
Despite his quarantine, the Prime Minister says the country will press ahead with plans to lift coronavirus restrictions in England on Monday. Facebook has hit back at claims by US President Joe Biden that the social media platform is killing people by allowing the spread of misinformation about coronavirus vaccines. The company's vice president, Guy Rosen, said in a corporate blog post that 85% of national Facebook users have been or want to be vaccinated against COVID-19. The company claims they've introduced rules against making false claims about COVID-19 and its vaccines. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, taking a closer look today at the deadly floods in Europe. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says they prove the need for a greater global commitment to battling climate change. And those sentiments were echoed late last week by Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission. But Gert-Jan van Oldenburg, a partner at the World Weather and International Scientific Network that specifically examines the link between weather and climate change, says it's still too early to draw that formal conclusion.
I mean, there are generalities. In general, these kind of events are becoming more severe throughout the world. But unfortunately, the local conditions can vary so much that it can change from no change at all to kind of double or change. Here in the Netherlands, extreme one-day precipitation is going up much faster than the global mean. But in East Germany, in the Elbe, it's going up more slowly. And we just don't know in which category this event falls. And it takes actual hard work. It will take about 2 or 3 weeks, which is really, really rapid for scientists. But I'm afraid not rapid enough for you, I guess.
There is now enormous pressure on him and his colleagues to determine whether there is a link. But he says that requires the latest updated climate modelling. And in this case, that could be difficult because despite the enormous death toll, the floods were short, sharp and geographically concentrated. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The top stories again. Chancellor Angela Merkel has visited the scene of devastating floods in Germany that have claimed the lives of at least 180 people. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has gone into self-isolation after the country's health minister tested positive for COVID-19. He says the country will still lift coronavirus restrictions in England on Monday. And Facebook has hit back at claims by US President Joe Biden that it's killing people by allowing the spread of misinformation about coronavirus vaccines. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the latest Feature Story news. Sarah Walton reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. Researchers at the University of Washington report that they have successfully trained 7-year-old chimpanzee Makoko to do all of the tasks necessary to conduct a 3-year study on primates. According to the scientists, Makoko has efficiently learned to turn in thorough analyses of behavior in chimpanzees, fill out all of the necessary paperwork to ensure compliance with the Animal Welfare Act, and even apply for supplemental grant funding from the National Institutes of Health. Sources within your office reported today that the guy on the 3rd floor with 2 computer screens on his desk is not f***ing around. Co-workers said that the man, currently working with at least 3 programs open on each screen, was absolutely tearing it up, with sources adding that watching the man run a group video chat while dragging 2 separate Google documents to his 2nd screen was like something out of f***ing Minority Report or something.
Jesus, he's just dragging things from one screen to the other like it's nothing. He's going balls to the wall over there. Christ, man, I don't think he's blinked in 3 minutes.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 if you want to join the conversation. I'm surprised no one has. I mean, we've been making everyone angry so far tonight. Rejoicing over the destruction of the Back the Blue sign, angering the right.
It's because we led with boredom and they're already asleep.
You might not be wrong.
Well, we got off the subject of boredom pretty quickly because it proved to be, without irony, rather boring. And we started talking about this Back the Blue sign that was destroyed by this woman. I'm not a believer in hate crime legislation. I oppose it vehemently. However, I have to say they're probably right to make the argument that under hate crime laws, what she did was a hate crime. She hates what the sign represents. Therefore, she destroyed the sign.
Well, and I think the underlying thought, even if it isn't articulated very well by the people who believe in hate crimes, is that you are also withdrawing humanity from other people, which is a threat to them.
It is, but it's only a threat if that person is willing to inflict violence on them. And we know that once people are dehumanized, a person is far more likely to inflict violence on them. Yeah. But the willingness to inflict violence shouldn't change based on what level of humanity one ascribes to others. At least that's my feeling on it.
Well, I mean, we don't ascribe humanity to cattle, and we're certainly willing to slaughter them for whatever, valid purpose we decide.
Sure, but I recognize that to be a violation of my moral principles while I do it.
Slaughtering cattle?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on the other in the other camp.
Sure,
I
mean most people are. I mean I swat flies and stuff too, but I recognize that as being abhorrent to my moral principles for me to do so.
Do you though?
I do. They have the exact same right to exist here on this planet that I do. It's just a matter that I'm bigger than them, I'm smarter than them, I'm stronger than them, and I can destroy their life because they're a nuisance to me. There is nothing more immoral than making a decision to destroy something's life because it's a nuisance to you. And yet we do it regularly. And I do it regularly.
So then the police are justified in destroying your life?
I don't believe in retaliatory violence, no. I don't believe that if someone hits me, I can then chase them down 6 months later and hit them back. That's very different from self-defense, which would be punching them back at the time of the event.
I think the difference here, and I respect how you phrased it, is she knows she's acting in opposition to her moral code, right? She's acknowledging that I have this moral code and now I'm acting outside of it. Whereas in the place of the police, right, if they don't believe that you are human or that you are less than, it is well within their moral code to club you over the head.
Well, okay, so if the fly has an equal right to not have their life destroyed to you.
Sure.
And it is, well, it is a practice to completely ignore that right.
Sure.
Then aren't the police justified in destroying your life?
I'm not justified in killing the fly.
On behalf of the fly.
I don't.
No.
We're coming to the fly's defense.
No part of it.
Although, if you really want to think about it, if the fly has the equal right to do this, if they, run you over with a cop car, that will keep you from swatting flies.
No, I never once in anything that I said suggested that I was justified in doing this. In fact, I said exactly the opposite, that I was immoral in doing it. So whether a cop could kill me and call it justified, I don't care. It would still be immoral.
Yeah.
Just like me swatting the flies immoral. I didn't say it was justified.
Well, I'm not making the connection either.
So if I had your value system, I can go, you know what? She's a mass murderer. And because I want to avoid future murders of flies, I've just got to kill you.
Sure. I would argue that that is equally as immoral as me killing flies. I would also...
That actually wouldn't be immoral.
Oh, okay.
But it would be because you would be taking a life. And it's immoral when I kill the flies.
So you don't believe in defensive force then?
It wouldn't be defensive force. It would be retaliatory.
He is coming to defense of innocent flies.
I'm talking about future flies.
Future crimes.
You're about to
you
kill.
Can't punish people for future crimes that they haven't yet committed. You got to roll that out from the start. That's stalk crime, dude.
You're being sentenced to death for all the flies that you have killed in the past.
That's retaliatory. I don't believe in that.
If someone draws a gun on me and I shoot them, they haven't actually shot me yet.
But they threatened your life.
Okay, you threaten the life of flies.
Not by merely existing, I don't.
You kind of do.
So do you.
Yes, I absolutely threaten the life of flies.
So it would make
I am so comfortable with that.
The difference with you is that it would make you a hypocrite to then kill me, as well as immoral.
Under the moral code,
that's what I was saying.
How would it be the justice?
If I had your moral code, then it would be perfectly justified for me to go, you know
I have
what?
never once in any of this conversation said any of these actions were justified. I don't know why you keep using that word.
How would you mete out justice for a fly killer under your moral code?
I don't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't.
It would. How would you differentiate between like retaliatory justice and other type of justice, and going like, she killed a fly, she needs to be held to account?
Well, I wouldn't, because to me it's not a major enough crossing of it's not a crossing of a moral event horizon. It's just an immoral act.
Okay.
And not one that I necessarily feel swayed one way or the other to prevent or to cause.
So what would be the crossing of a moral event horizon?
Something significantly more drastic, like murdering a human being versus a fly.
I thought you said they have just as much right to exist.
They do, and I realize that I'm immoral to ascribe different levels of worthiness to different forms of life.
But justice would be different.
So your moral code is immoral?
No,
Okay, gotcha.
no.
I think I'm on board now.
No, you're twisting what I said. I'm immoral because I don't follow that moral code.
Which I respect. I like that phrasing.
That doesn't mean the moral.
respect that at all.
That doesn't
Okay.
mean the moral code is immoral. It means I knowingly commit actions that I know are against it.
I'm saying that your moral code is logically inconsistent.
There are
How? In what way is it logically inconsistent?
Okay, so I know for a fact that within the next year you will kill a fly.
Yep. And that will be immoral.
Okay. Now, if a fly has an equal right to exist, like take me personally.
I think
out
the
of
part that
this.
you're struggling with this is the fact that I've said
Now, if
I'm
I
committing
knew-
an act.
if I knew
Hold
for a
on.
fact-
the part that you're struggling with, from what I can tell, is you don't comprehend that I recognize that what I'm doing is immoral. It makes me an immoral person. I am violating the moral code that guides me. I am therefore immoral.
I don't
That's
think
not
this word means
that's
what
not
you think it means.
illogical.
Okay, so if I knew with absolute certainty that you were going to kill Rich at some point in this year, like I could absolutely prove before a jury of my peers that is absolutely the plan.
Well, you can be reasonably
Here's the-
certain, but you
here's
can't
this-
be absolutely certain.
I can be quite certain you will kill a fly within the next year.
You can be reasonably certain, but you can't be absolutely certain.
Well, sure. And I mean, the guy who pulls a gun on me, it might be a prop. He might have blanks in it. I can only be reasonably
You're looking
certain.
for ways of justifying preventing future crimes, and that's thought crime. Again, dude.
Oh, I completely disagree. That's not thought crime.
It
Like,
is. You're,
if someone is,
you're
if so-
you wanting to punish someone for something they haven't even done.
Okay.
Because of something they may do. And
If
so
you
you're a
draw a
fortune
gun
teller.
on
You're a
me,
prophet.
you
You're a
have-
foreseer of the future.
I can
Well,
foresee
that's
all
what-
sorts of
That's why I
future.
want to hold this to like justice for the flies you've already killed.
I can foresee all sorts of future. The sun will rise tomorrow.
Yes, but you can't go around acting as though those things are certain and punishing people because of them.
I can go around acting as if it is certain that the sun will rise tomorrow.
Well, then you'd be wrong because the sun doesn't rise. The earth rotates the sun.
Well, that's
It
a matter
spins
of
on an axis.
perspective.
No, that's a matter of science.
No, that's a matter of relativity. So my point of reference is myself. Your point of reference is the sun.
My point of reference is astronomy and the fact that
Astronomy is a subject,
the sun
not a
doesn't
point in
rise.
space.
The sun doesn't rise. I mean, you know this, right? The earth rotates around the sun,
That
and that
depends
creates
on your
an
point
illusion.
of actually that depends on your point of reference. That's how relativity works. So if your point of reference is the Earth, then one thing happens. If your point of reference is the center of the galaxy, a different thing happens.
No. If your point of reference is Earth, you're wrong in what you're observing, and you need more information. You're still wrong.
No,
To
that's...
say the Earth is rising is categorically 100% scientifically wrong. It's not a matter of
Did you
perspective.
somehow not learn relativity?
It's wrong. Dude, I majored in physics.
That's why
What
I'm
you're talking about,
confused.
general relativity, is the curvature of the space-time that has absolutely nothing to do with where one is standing in how a event is understood. It's how it's measured.
You have to have a point of reference in order to determine motion or acceleration.
Relative to my fist, you headbutted my hand.
Sure. More coming up, 603-283-6160, 603-283-6160. You're welcome to weigh in. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com. Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us. 603-283-6160 is the number to do that. That's 603-283-6160, because that's what we do here on Free Talk Live. We empower you to express your opinions on national radio, and if you value that, you may consider joining the AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. It's money that is used just to advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live, hence its name. It gets us on more radio stations. It helps us bring our podcast to more listeners, all of that great stuff. So if you find that to be useful, you might do what Liberty Block here at the Liberty Block did and join the AMP program. It's only $5 per month. That gets you in. And I just did the wrong one, didn't I? Yep, I don't know what day it is. But Liberty Block...
Sunday.
Well, I apparently think it's Monday. Thank you so much for your contributions. And again, check out the AMP program, amp.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phone. So we've got Ryan calling from Chattanooga. Ryan, you're on Free Talk Live. Are you with us?
Hey, guys.
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
I'm pretty new to the crypto world, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can before the next surge. And I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Would it be best just to ask them both and then hang up and listen to your reply, or ask them individually and stay on the line?
I'll stick for the conversation.
So what's your first question?
First thing, I've heard you talking about the gold-backed cryptos. And I've been looking into them. Are you referring to one called Asia Broadband? I'm having a hard time finding much information about Goldback.
Yeah, I can see your confusion. Goldback isn't a crypto. You can find it at goldback.com, or it may be goldbacks.com. I'm not exactly sure, but it's not a cryptocurrency. It's an actual piece of laminate with gold woven into it. So it's the actual...
physical currency.
Yes, it's very similar to a paper currency, except it isn't. It's plastic with some gold woven into it. It's an actual physical currency, not a cryptocurrency.
Have you heard of the gold-backed crypto called Asia Broadband?
I would suggest anything called Asian Broadband has no relationship to the Goldback.
Now, there is the possibility of having a cryptocurrency that is backed by gold.
I think that was a thing
that's what,
at some point.
Those already exist.
Yeah.
In theory. We don't actually know if Pax Gold actually has the gold they say they have, but there was also work being done at one point about a gold-backed cryptocurrency. I don't think that ever came to fruition, but there are certainly.
Yeah, I'm personally very skeptical of those because, the U.S. government has a tendency to find reasons to steal gold from people. So
there was one of those advertised on another podcast that I listened to several years ago, and then I also think the founder of the Liberty Dollar or his ilk were working on another gold-backed cryptocurrency of some kind. But I haven't followed that enough to say, but it had nothing to do with Asian broads.
Yeah. So
okay, and then my next question is: Do you ever see a time where you could just walk into Walmart, pull out your cryptocurrency app, and be able to pay for your goods right there at the scene?
Oh yeah,
I do, Ryan. Absolutely, and thank you so much for the calls tonight. And that's an excellent. You're still with us, by the way. I just wanted to say thank you for the thought-provoking conversation.
Okay.
That's the goal for all of us, right? And there are already stores in which you can do this, here in Keene in particular, but it's largely most useful online at the moment, with Amazon purchases being available through cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, thanks to Purse.io. There's also a wide variety of gift cards. I don't really consider
There's a lot of
that
intermediary ways to do it.
Yeah, I don't consider the gift card route to be really the best approach to this. It's a step in the right direction, but the company Valve, who owns the PC gaming platform Steam, used to accept Bitcoin as payment. They stopped because the transaction fees went through the roof. Maybe one day, probably soon, they'll accept it again.
I think Overstock was the biggest online retailer. That was the first.
Don't they still do it?
I believe so, yeah.
They still do.
Newegg also accepts cryptocurrency. They accept a huge range of cryptocurrency because they're supported by AnyPay. It is a matter of time, I think, before people can just whip out their phones at Walmart and scan a little QR code on the little card reader instead of inserting a card. I don't know how far we are from that, but I do think it's the future.
Well, and if you
look at the government's still able to collect their taxes, so it's not.
Well,
is that the problem? The government getting involved because they're not gonna be able to get what's theirs.
Oh, well, they can certainly get what's there. This would be relatively easy. Instead of taxing people's income, just increase, sales tax or whatever. There are ways the government could still tax it. So instead of, having your income tax or whatever because you're being paid in cryptocurrency and they don't know if they can trust you, just increase sales taxes across the board. This makes more sense anyway because people shouldn't be taxed. If they're going to be taxed, they shouldn't be punished for earning money, but for spending money because they should be incentivized to save money.
If I'm being honest, I think the Walmart scenario is probably decades out before Walmart needs to go that route with cryptocurrency. Like they're big enough where they can just ignore it until Bitcoin or cryptocurrency becomes too big for them to ignore. But Walmart's big enough.
Well, and it's tough to tell when if you look at the rate of currency increase. Like if you look at the number of U.S. dollars, like we're past the hockey stick here. Like it is just skyrocketing in the sheer number of U.S. dollars in circulation, and that is coming home to roost.
Yeah, but Walmart serves everybody though, and not the percentage of people actively using cryptocurrency for daily transactions is so small that there's no reason for Walmart to cater to those people at the moment. Like the use case has to grow significantly. As far as the taxes, the restaurant that we usually go to dinner, I didn't pay with crypto, but they do accept crypto, right? And when you scan your QR code, right, you get the total bill, right?
Which includes the tax.
Which includes the tax. So they're already collecting it.
Is that, if we operate under this mindset that, the government actually needs to collect taxes from people and the income tax is the best way for them to do that, how do they do that when, they can't track how people are paying their income taxes? And the easiest way to do that is to just increase sales taxes across the board.
Sure.
Yeah, and income tax, well, taxes in general, but income tax especially hasn't been a way of actually running the government for over 100 years.
No, I think it goes to service the debt that is owed to the Federal Reserve Bank and nothing else.
Well, honestly, the purpose of income tax is to incentivize and disincentivize different behaviors among people. Like, that's its actual purpose. And you could collect zero taxes and just keep printing money like you do, and you could still run everything.
For the vast majority of people, income tax is withheld before you get your paycheck anyway.
Yeah.
So if you got paid in Bitcoin, your income tax would be held before the Bitcoin disbursement.
Well, but even the withholding amount, you have to put how many dependents you have. So they are incentivizing having more dependents.
Understood. But if he's worried that Bitcoin won't become adopted because the government can't get their cut, they can certainly get their cut even if you're getting paid in Bitcoin.
I tend to agree with that because they have something over the employers. They can say, hey, look, you owe us this amount of income taxes for these employees and we didn't get it. So we're shutting you down and we're arresting you, right?
Not that I support any of this, but that's how it would work.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are certainly ways for the government to tax cryptocurrency. Whether or not they can prove that a person has this cryptocurrency or that cryptocurrency, that's a little bit murkier. But it's Bitcoin, at the very least, definitely taxable. If the world were switched on to running totally on Bitcoin tomorrow, the government would still relatively quickly have ways of taxing it. More coming up, 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. That's 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Sarah Walton. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has visited the scene of devastating floods in Germany that have claimed the lives of at least 180 people. Rescue operations are still underway while more heavy rain is hitting the region. Our correspondent Trent Murray is in Germany.
Well, there remains an absolute extraordinary amount of debris and destruction littered across this large area of northwest Germany. These floodwaters first hit the region on Wednesday, and ever since then, rescue crews have been desperately trying to search the area for survivors. Chancellor Angela Merkel visited the region on Sunday, and she was visibly shocked herself. She, in fact, said she doesn't think there is even a word in the German language to describe how much destruction there is.
At least 30 people have died in Mumbai after torrential rainfall triggered landslides, causing a wall and several houses to collapse. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued a warning that more heavy rain is on the way. Rebecca Bundhun reports from Mumbai.
India's financial capital over the weekend was hit hard by very heavy rainfall, which caused flooding in many parts of the city. A landslide led to a wall collapsing on several houses, while other homes gave way in another suburban area due to landslides. Rescue teams worked to free those trapped under the rubble. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted that he was saddened by the loss of lives and promised financial compensation for the families of the victims. It's currently the monsoon season, which leads to hundreds of deaths in India each year. Rebecca Bundhun, Mumbai.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has gone into self-isolation after the country's health minister tested positive for COVID-19. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, is also going into quarantine, even though they've both been fully vaccinated. The pair sparked anger by initially saying they wouldn't self-isolate and would instead take part in a pilot scheme being run in the UK that allows a select few people to take part in daily coronavirus testing instead. Boris Johnson released a video statement shortly after the U-turn.
We did look briefly at the idea of us taking part in the pilot scheme, which allows people to test daily. But I think it's far more important that everybody sticks to the same rules. And that's why I'm going to be self-isolating until the 26th of July. I know how frustrating it all is, but I really do urge everybody to stick with the programme.
Despite his quarantine, the Prime Minister says the country will press ahead with plans to lift coronavirus restrictions in England on Monday. Facebook has hit back at claims by US President Joe Biden that the social media platform is killing people by allowing the spread of misinformation about coronavirus vaccines. The company's Vice President, Guy Rosen, said in a corporate blog post that 85% of national Facebook users have been or want to be vaccinated against COVID-19. The company claims they've introduced rules against making false claims about COVID-19 and its vaccines. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. You're more than welcome to join us at 603-283-6160. Last caller wanted to ask some questions about Bitcoin. Always a favorite topic here on the show, we were the first media outlet to accept advertisement payments in cryptocurrency. And of course, we've been promoting cryptocurrency heavily since, I think, 2012. I don't recall. I say we, as we is in Free Talk Live. I wasn't even on the show then, but
I'm pretty sure the show was aware of Bitcoin as early as 2010, 2009.
Sounds about right. Yeah. 2010.
So it's always been something that we've talked
promoting shortly thereafter.
Yeah. Because cryptocurrency, it's world-changing information, and it's important for people to learn about it, and not just learn about it thinking they're going to get rich or whatever, but to actually believe in the things that it's trying to achieve. Like, if you remember the 2007 recession, you might see why we'd want a currency that exists beyond the control of the banks that caused the 2007 recession and are very quickly working on creating a new Great Depression.
And ironically, it was developed shortly thereafter.
It was motivated highly by the 2007 recession, as Satoshi Nakamoto revealed in the newsletters.
Yeah.
But let's go to the phones. We got Diane calling. Diane calling. Diane, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did want to apologize for interrupting the last time I called, the first time I called. And I wanted to ask about the Nazis, because I'm so sick of them being called right-wing when I know darn well they were socialists, national socialists, that's what the word means, Nazi.
Yeah, you are correct. For whatever reason, we do consider Nazis to be right-wing. I guess the way that we characterize the wings now is just a matter of social conservatism versus social liberalism or progressivism, however you'd wish to characterize it.
Right wing of the same bird.
Well, I would say that the difference between your right-wing authoritarian and your left-wing authoritarian is primarily rhetoric, and secondarily...
I'm sorry.
And secondarily, methods. So your right-wing socialist is a nationalist that wants to expand and possibly cover the globe. Your left-wing socialist is someone who just wants to cover the globe immediately.
What's the difference?
Nationalism.
Timing.
Okay.
Nationalism, especially in terms of rhetoric, and timing.
Yeah.
So the left socialists want, just a global government without the national identity.
Worker uprising.
While a right-wing socialist wants the national identity to consume the rest of the world.
Yes.
Okay.
Diane?
Well, either way, I definitely agree. There's nothing liberal about either of those approaches.
Oh, yeah.
And they're both, as far as I can tell, hard authoritarianism. But the whole left-right political compass thing is fundamentally broken in the first place, because are we talking economic right and economic left, or social right and social left? Because economically, I'm about as far to the right as a person can get. Totally pro-free markets, voluntary interactions between other people, no regulations that a person doesn't consent to. But on the other hand, when it comes to social issues, I'm about as hard left as you can get. I don't care what other people do.
So I guess you have this group of people that are being labeled like right-wing Nazis. And if you don't want to ascribe the Nazi term to them, what would you use instead?
Diane?
Fascist.
Well, does that change anything?
Well, and so, I mean, fascism is considered to be on the right because corporations are generally considered to be a capitalist phenomenon. Now, I disagree with that.
They're a fascist phenomenon.
So you have fascist, right, on the right, and then you have the president of the White House being Democrat left, right,
but he's
intertwined with Facebook, and he's also a fascist. Right, he's demanding businesses act a certain way in relation to their customers and collections of data.
And at this point, the Democratic Party is actually right of center.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the way that they treat the market, the way they treat especially corporations, they are actually right of center.
Well, what is center and what is left and what is right? This is part of the whole issue I see. I prefer just think of it as, left is freedom, right is authoritarianism.
Well, so part of fascism is that you have nominal control of corporations by people who aren't the government, even though the government tells them what to do.
Right.
Like the White House telling Facebook what to do.
Whereas on the left, the government just directly controls it.
Yeah, but to me, they're just different forms of authoritarianism.
Yeah, I think the authoritarian-libertarian dynamic is the only important one, honestly. The rest is just flavoring.
Yeah, I would have to agree. They're all hard right. The fascist that is Joe Biden is no different from the fascist that is Donald Trump. They both are using corporations to run the United States. And when that fails, they just use the United States government to run the United States. But Facebook is very clearly doing the work of the U.S. government with this recent extremist nonsense.
Seems to be.
And not to mention the COVID-19 stuff. And let's talk about how these three pharmaceutical companies in the United States, these major corporations that people know not to trust because we've been talking about the evils of big pharma in the United States for the last 50 years at least, suddenly they're the saviors and beyond reproach because they created this thing and the CDC, the government said, yes, we love these things. You should take these things. And suddenly big pharma stopped being evil.
Well, and it was pointed out that, we had to give up everything because this was a global pandemic. It is an emergency. It is an international emergency. We had to give everything up. But the corporations don't even have to give up intellectual property rights.
The big corporations, small corporations.
They don't, excellent points.
Yeah, they don't have to tell anyone else how to make the vaccine.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I look forward to thinking about that later. But yeah, that's exactly it. They're still getting paid, and they don't have to, if this virus was absolutely as big deal as you would expect it to be, Moderna and Pfizer and all of these other companies that supposedly care about you would be like, no, we're not charging you for this virus. But instead, they're charging you for the virus.
Well, if this thing's so important, then why is the government protecting their intellectual property rights? Why can you have a copyright on how to make this thing when it's so terribly important that everyone gets it?
Because they're fascists.
Yeah. Well, and
it's just a way of extracting wealth from the people through taxes and filtering it into the hands of big pharma.
Because
competition is the way to describe it, honestly.
Competition breeds innovation, and that's why you have 3 different vaccines instead of 1. So you get 3 ways to try it out. If there was no intellectual property, they would have said, this is the one, and everyone would have manufactured that, and you wouldn't have the competition.
Well, no, if this is so important, then we shouldn't have any of the intellectual property rights for any of them.
I see your point, though. If a company had come out with a working vaccine, it was like, okay, here's how to make the vaccine, go and produce it. No, why would anyone have stopped to look for another way to make a vaccine?
They would not have.
Why would Johnson & Johnson have carried on?
They probably wouldn't have, because it would have been cheaper just to take that one, manufacture it, and get it out there and get paid that way.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. So that's something else I'm going to have to think about later because I hate intellectual property. And I know there's got to be an argument against that.
No, there definitely is.
Okay.
Oh, there is.
But it's never something I've considered before that intellectual property can, in some circumstances, create competition. That's bizarre, and I've never had it presented to me like that, so I don't have a response on hand.
It never creates more competition than it destroys.
That might be fair.
Yeah. Now, I did want to mention back on Diana's question, though, or I really want to point out, Diane, sorry.
Okay.
I did want to point out that in general, people who are on the right will talk about things that are on the right as things that are more libertarian, less oppressive, and people who are on the left will talk about things on the left being more libertarian, less oppressive, and vice versa, as far as saying, oh, that's this tyrannical threat to our existence, that's on the opposite side of what I identify with. When really what they're talking about is libertarian versus authoritarian.
And they're painting their desire to oppress others in libertarian terms so that people aren't as repulsed by it as they would be. It's like, no, we want to oppress the right wing. It's never that.
That's a harder message to carry.
It's always, oh, we want to liberate the LGBTQ minorities. Never, we want to prevent people from being able to express their opinions. So couching their authoritarian language and their authoritarian leanings in libertarian language, definitely a problem. Definitely something to watch out for. But what are your thoughts? You're welcome to join us, 603-283-6160. What do you think happened to the idea of Big Pharma? It seems to have gone away as far as I can tell.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. If you want to join the conversation, you're more than welcome to. We do have someone on hold right now, and Leah and I ended up getting into a discussion, so I didn't actually screen the call. Sorry about that. Stick with us just a few more minutes.
Unscreened calls.
Well, I mean,
do it.
We do have a dump button, right? So we
Okay.
definitely can do that. But we've been talking about Nazis, so who knows what the potential consequences of that could be. But yeah, so sorry about that. We are, of course, a live call-in show, 603-283-6160, if you want to call in.
I distracted the host with physics talk.
Yes, and it was good talk. I don't know how to replay the conversation, though, because you said you wanted to discuss it on air.
I do.
I don't
You
know
have
how
2
to.
points.
I still do.
You have object A and object B. Fight.
So we were talking about, does the sun actually rise? And you said objectively it does not. And I said it depends on your point of reference. If your point of reference is either the Earth or something that's in the same, what do they call, inertial frame as the Earth. So if the Earth is your point of reference, then absolutely the sun does rise. But in calculating
the point of relativity, which, as you brought up, we're actually discussing special relativity here and not general relativity, is that one would be able to make the observations on either the sun or the Earth and determine the same rate at which the objects are traveling. Now, from the point of view of someone on the sun, they would see something completely different, right?
To determine motion,
but the measurements
you
would
must
still
have a
be
point
the
of reference.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So if your point of reference is the Earth, then the Earth is still, by definition, because it's your point of reference.
Yes, but the observation is wrong. The measurements can still be right based on the frame of the point of reference there, but the conclusion about what those measurements mean will still be wrong. You can calculate the 24-hour day or whatever from here on Earth, and you can, do all the math and figure that out exactly and still be right and still come to the conclusion that the Earth is, that the sun is rising. But you would be wrong in that conclusion.
You could equally say that the sun is going around, or that the Earth is going around the sun, as to say that neither the Earth nor the sun is going around each other, but rather they're circling the center of the galaxy. It really depends on what your point of reference is. Well, that depends. So if your point of reference is the sun, then it's actually the galaxy circling around it, which is wacky, but you kind of have to.
No, the point of view of no.
Once
you were
point
standing
of
on the
reference,
sun.
Once you pick a point of reference, then that is still.
Yes, but you're bringing special relativity, which is about measurements and calculating the differences between, the movement of oneself and how that affects the speed of time. And you're talking a matter that's totally different, which is philosophical in nature and has absolutely nothing to do with physics. You're talking about
that has everything to do with
what
physics.
You're presenting is basically the story of the allegory of Plato's cave, and how one person, this is their limited frame of view, so this is how they view the world, and they don't know that they're just looking at shadows on a wall. That's not physics at all.
No, I'm talking geometry.
No, you're not, because this doesn't have anything to do with that.
Okay, so
special relativity is only about measurements and calculating differences between frames of reference. It has nothing to do with, I perceive that the sun is rising in the sky, and special relativity, therefore I'm correct. That's not even wrong.
Well, I know we went through this on the break, but let me just go ahead and spit this out for the benefit of our listeners. So if you have object A and object B, and the distance between them is increasing, and you have no point of reference, then you can't tell which one is moving and which one is still, or if they're both moving.
And you can't even determine whether either one is moving or whether or not the space between them is actually expanding, which is what dark energy is. And that seems to be the leading theory.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
But if you were standing on object A, you could determine that object B is moving further.
The universe is
just saying that
would
the
mean
reason
that,
the
hold
world...
on. You just called dark energy nonsense. So
It
I
is
want to
absolutely
explain
nonsense.
Well, that means that galaxies can move faster than the speed of light, because there are many that are moving away faster than the speed of light, and we will never be able to experience those galaxies. If dark energy is nonsense, if dark energy is nonsense, then Einstein was wrong.
Yes, Einstein was wrong about lots of things.
Bold claim, sir.
Including quantum physics. God does not play dice. Yeah, he totally does, and they're loaded. So
if dark energy is wrong, then Einstein was wrong about general relativity and special relativity.
He's wrong about plenty of things.
I'm not going to say he was wrong about general relativity or special relativity, because both of those, as far as we can tell, have been experimentally proven to be sound.
Okay, so the idea that there is something that I cannot measure in any way, shape, or form.
But we can measure it.
Dark energy?
Yeah, it's the expansion of space. We can measure that expansion.
Yeah, your math's wrong.
I haven't even done any math.
I'm saying
that's
that
a bold
dark
claim
energy,
for someone who has literally not done any math.
Dark energy is a way to not discard the math that you've already done. And I don't mean you personally. I mean that physicists have already done these models, and then they found out that this was wrong, and instead of discarding it, they invented something that is religious in nature. If you're telling me that there is no way of measuring this thing except it is what determines why things move the way they do, that is a religious claim. That is a claim of the spirit.
Why they move faster than special relativity allows them to. Because you can't just overlook that and say dark energy is nonsense, because if dark energy is nonsense, then galaxies, atoms can literally travel faster than the speed of light.
Or your model is completely flawed.
And again, you're going back to saying that Einstein's special relativity is wrong.
Yes.
And you want to argue physics with me.
Sure.
Let's go to this unscreened caller.
As an observer, I think that you, Aria, may be overcomplicating the example because you have expertise in the area.
Could be. Caller, you're on Free Talk Live.
Good evening. My name is Michael, and I'm calling from Connecticut. And by the way, I'm watching on Odyssey, so it's
awesome.
A great improvement there.
Awesome. People can find that at video.freetalklive.com, and it'll take you straight to it. And there, we can't be censored.
Yes. I wanted to talk about the term the non-aggression principle, and why I don't think it's the best terminology when, or I would say verbiage in terms of discussing the ideas of liberty. I've started using, when I talk about libertarianism and free markets to everybody, I like to use the term unanimous consent of the self-emancipated. So I think
that is a mouthful. That does not translate to NAP or NAP for common parlance.
Universal consent. Run it by me again.
Like unanimous consent of the self. I guess you could say self-emancipated, self-governed. Although governed has baggage to it. That word.
Well, so
it just seems like when you say.
If I don't like the way you're doing a thing, then you don't have unanimous consent, though.
Yes,
So it's already.
Well, if it doesn't involve you, then your consent doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So unanimous consent is the consent of one?
It's the consent of the involved parties.
Okay.
Consent means total voluntary cooperation, 100%, everything's voluntary, where governments don't act like that. They act like the complete opposite of that, where it's not non-consensual. And
right.
And I use unanimous consent only because people like I'm the non-voting type person. People like to say consent of the governed, but usually that means elections or some kind of legislation where it's really, it's a percentage of people oppressing another percentage of people through the power of the state.
So how about the consensual involvement principle?
How about universally preferred behavior?
That one gets into trouble.
Oh.
He kind of uses preferred or preferable in two different ways at the same time. It's an issue.
Oh, thank you for the call tonight. It's certainly an interesting way of looking at things. I don't, selling liberty should be really, really easy. The worst salesman alive should be able to sell the ideas of liberty to people. Hey,
no,
I want you to be free to live your life the way you want.
Well, it comes with responsibility, and people hate that.
Well, okay. Here's the other problem. the greatest salesman alive wouldn't pitch someone on all the benefits of liberty, right? They would assess the needs of the person they're talking to and inform them on how liberty, right, fills those needs. And that is the biggest problem with people just blabbering out about liberty and libertarianism, is that they don't assess the needs of the person they're talking to first.
But what about when we do assess those needs? Like we have these parents who, they recognize that the school system sucks, and we're like, hey, have you tried this? Yeah. Maybe you'll consider this libertarian solution to these problems you're having. And they go, no, I'll keep them in government schools. I know they're terrible. But, I mean, there are plenty of parents who know.
It's uncertainty. And we have an instinctual fear of uncertainty.
And so in sales, that would be overcoming the objection, right?
Okay.
Unless you get no, hell no, no, get out of my face, no, right? The answer is yes, and you just got to work harder to get there. So the objection is,
Do you work in sales?
I have worked in sales. I don't like it, so I don't do it, but yes.
I like the way you approach sales, but still, libertarians have a hard time of selling the ideas of liberty for whatever reason.
I just told you what.
The uncertainty. Overcome the objection.
603-283-6160. If you want to weigh in, that's 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Sarah Walton. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has visited the scene of devastating floods in Germany that have claimed the lives of at least 180 people. Rescue operations are still underway while more heavy rain is hitting the region. Our correspondent Trent Murray is in Germany.
Well, there remains an absolute extraordinary amount of debris and destruction littered across this large area of northwest Germany. These floodwaters first hit the region on Wednesday, and ever since then, rescue crews have been desperately trying to search the area for survivors. Chancellor Angela Merkel visited the region on Sunday, and she was visibly shocked herself. She, in fact, said she doesn't think there is even a word in the German language to describe how much destruction there is.
At least 30 people have died in Mumbai after torrential rainfall triggered landslides, causing a wall and several houses to collapse. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued a warning that more heavy rain is on the way. Rebecca Bundhun reports from Mumbai.
India's financial capital over the weekend was hit hard by very heavy rainfall, which caused flooding in many parts of the city. A landslide led to a wall collapsing on several houses, while other homes gave way in another suburban area due to landslides. Rescue teams worked to free those trapped under the rubble. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted that he was saddened by the loss of lives and promised financial compensation for the families of the victims. It's currently the monsoon season, which leads to hundreds of deaths in India each year. Rebecca Bunton, Mumbai.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has gone into self-isolation after the country's health minister tested positive for COVID-19. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, is also going into quarantine, even though they've both been fully vaccinated. The pair sparked anger by initially saying they wouldn't self-isolate and would instead take part in a pilot scheme being run in the UK that allows a select few people to take part in daily coronavirus testing instead. Boris Johnson released a video statement shortly after the U-turn.
We did look briefly at the idea of us taking part in the pilot scheme, which allows people to test daily. But I think it's far more important that everybody sticks to the same rules. And that's why I'm going to be self-isolating until the 26th of July. I know how frustrating it all is, but I really do urge everybody to stick with the programme.
Despite his quarantine, the Prime Minister says the country will press ahead with plans to lift coronavirus restrictions in England on Monday. Facebook has hit back at claims by US President Joe Biden that the social media platform is killing people by allowing the spread of misinformation about coronavirus vaccines. The company's Vice President, Guy Rosen, said in a corporate blog post that 85% of national Facebook users have been or want to be vaccinated against COVID-19. The company claims they've introduced rules against making false claims about COVID-19 and its vaccines. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, taking a closer look today at the deadly floods in Europe. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says they prove the need for a greater global commitment to battling climate change. And those sentiments were echoed late last week by Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission. But Gert-Jan van Oldenburg, a partner at the World Weather and International Scientific Network that specifically examines the link between weather and climate change, says it's still too early to draw that formal conclusion.
I mean, there are generalities. In general, these kind of events are becoming more severe throughout the world. But unfortunately, the local conditions can vary so much that it can change from no change at all to kind of double or change. Here in the Netherlands, extreme one-day precipitation is going up much faster than the global mean. But in East Germany, in the Elbe, it's going up more slowly. And we just don't know in which category this event falls. And it takes actual hard work. It will take about 2 or 3 weeks, which is really, really rapid for scientists. But I'm afraid not rapid enough for you, I guess.
There is now enormous pressure on him and his colleagues to determine whether there is a link. But he says that requires the latest updated climate modelling. And in this case, that could be difficult because despite the enormous death toll, the floods were short, sharp and geographically concentrated. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The top stories again. Chancellor Angela Merkel has visited the scene of devastating floods in Germany that have claimed the lives of at least 180 people. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has gone into self-isolation after the country's health minister tested positive for COVID-19. He says the country will still lift coronavirus restrictions in England on Monday. And Facebook has hit back at claims by US President Joe Biden that it's killing people by allowing the spread of misinformation about coronavirus vaccines. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the latest Feature Story news. Sarah Walton reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. Poets across the nation issued a statement Thursday announcing that shadows, inky sharp as the raven's beak, meet the clouds like dusty charcoal on an ashen brow. Citing the ageless gloom of morning and a weary sun, its astroluminescence wrapped in arid gauze, the report noted that doubt lingers in the frail minutes of a young dawn.
For what is the sound of hope? For what is life's moment of fulfillment? The supple lie of spring prolongs the inquisition. Father! Father! Do you not sense the dread of autumn's looming song danced in trembling half-step? 1, 2, 1, 2.
The poets later added, womb, womb, womb. And in local news, a sad sack is bullied by an area goose. In other news, a photographer specializes in those pictures where lights going by really fast look like lines. An entree is apparently the kind you squeeze lime over, and employees finally get that break room bathtub they wanted.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You're welcome to join the discussion, 603-283-6160 if you want to do that. And, we were just having a conversation. What is it about the ability to laugh at things that are just horrifically wrong that so many of us love so much? Like, my favorite category of humor by far is dark humor. Jokes the likes of which cannot be told on Free Talk Live. Maybe on they could be told on Free Talk Live, but definitely not on Free Talk Live.
Tonight on Odyssey.
We're talking dead baby jokes are mundane compared to some of the dark humor jokes that I have that I love. That to me, they're just hilarious, but they're horrifying, right?
Yeah.
And you made a joke.
There is a category horribly funny. Like, not just especially funny, but no, horribly funny.
And you made a joke during the break that was along the same kinds of lines. Just, this is horrible, but it's funny for some reason. I don't know what that is, but it's so fascinating to me that humans can take something that is just absolutely horrific and laugh about it. I think that laughter is a healing thing, and that we've been talking about, angry people on the left, angry people on the right. People need to laugh more.
Well, and I think part of it is the fact that what shall not be repeated.
Yes, let's not.
Well, the fact that was in no way actually considered a threat is why it's funny. One of the elements of humor is that if it is a real thing that people are scared of, it doesn't become funny.
And also not like a true belief that I hold personally.
Right.
So,
well, let's go to the phone. Speaking of things that made people upset, we've got Starchild calling from California, San Francisco. Starchild, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, Arya, how what you were just saying was a perfect segue to what I want to talk about because...
Thanks. I try to occasionally be good at this. Are you still with us? I think we lost him.
Uh-oh.
Starchild?
Oh,
there you are. You're breaking up a lot, though. You might want to step outside or something like that. But you called about the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir, which recently released a YouTube video that upset a lot of people. It seemed to me to be, people called it satire, but I didn't think satire was the right word.
Was that the We're Coming for Your Kids video?
Yes, but what the point wasn't we're coming for your kids to make them gay, which is what everyone assumed was going to be the message. It was we're coming for your kids to make them tolerant and open rather than hateful. The only issue we had with what we actually saw was, other than the fact that it just honestly wasn't a very good song, and it was kind of annoying and tedious and repetitive, was that they used the word make your kids tolerant and open and friendly.
Okay.
Rather than hateful, instead of, we're going to teach them to be open and friendly.
And was it not released shortly thereafter that a handful of those choir members were convicted pedophiles or something or another?
If so, I haven't heard about that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
I will look that up later.
And there's a larger principle there is, like, if something is virtuous, then it can only be virtuous if it's engaged in voluntarily.
Yes.
Like feeding the hungry is virtuous. Being forced to feed the hungry isn't.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's an excellent point. It comes right back to the idea of charity and taxation and all of that. Yes, it's charitable. It's good to give your money to help people, but the government taking your money and using it to help people is not necessarily good because it involves a lot of immoral acts along the way. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to help kids? That's great. Contribute your money to that. But putting a gun to someone's head and forcing them to give money to kids is not a moral thing to do.
So yeah, abstaining from calling someone a racial epithet is good. Being forced to abstain from a racial epithet isn't good.
It's actually worse than bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost how I was going to make that connection, but I did. So, did you find what you were looking for?
It's mostly that they were receiving death threats, and I'll retract because the only thing that mentions the pedophiles was like a right-wing trolling effort.
Okay. I can imagine they received a lot of death threats from this.
Okay.
Starchild, thank you for bringing this subject back to our attention. It definitely didn't seem like satire to me. I don't know how they could characterize it as. It had some satirical elements, I guess, and that they used right-wing terminology, and I don't remember now exactly what that terminology was. Conversion, I think, was one of the words they used. Of course, that is a strong right-wing talking point, but they took that and they turned it on its head, which I guess, is sort of the definition of satire, but having
that bit would be satirical, yeah.
So there's also an old quote that if you're going to tell people the truth, you better make them laugh while you're doing it, right? So if it has to be funny or satirical in some form.
Not knowing, was it George Carlin who said that?
It may be. I don't know.
It sounds like something he would say.
But if you're going to send the message that we are going to convert your kids or make them more tolerant or whatever, it's not going to be received like that. So you have to make it funny so you can say, like, well, it's just a satire. We're just having fun with it. We're not really coming for your kids.
There was nothing funny in this video. It wasn't humorous. It wasn't clever. I guess it's clever to say we're coming for your kids.
So that's the problem,
because that's the quote gay agenda, right?
Well, and that's the problem, though, when it's a legitimate threat, because they will use the government to force your children to make certain actions and abstain from others, and that is a real, not only possibility but probability, and that keeps it from being funny.
Also true, but even if they hadn't used the word make, even if they've just said, we're going to teach your kids tolerance and openness or whatever.
Then it just falls flat.
Yeah.
And is that still their responsibility to do it? Like, I feel the overall culture is already moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to jump in front of that parade.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like being against slavery, which is, really obvious now.
It's like being
Not
against
so
slavery
obvious
as they're
150
releasing the
years ago.
slaves. Like, as they're releasing the slaves, like, this is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Society is definitely trending toward, tolerance and acceptance of sexual and gender minorities. There's absolutely no doubt of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just 20 years ago, it was unthinkable to come out as a trans person. Now trans people are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things that I've seen about this, it plays into the quote, the gay agenda theory, is that, they're turning the kids trans and gay or whatever because now something like 3% of people are trans, and we've never had that many trans people before. Yeah, but think about how left-handed people were treated back in the day. If you were left-handed, you were forced to live as a right-handed person. You weren't allowed to be left-handed because that was considered evil.
I'm still left-handed.
But there are but then we stopped doing that.
Right.
We stopped forcing people to be right-handed, and we went, like 10% of the population is left-handed. It wasn't lefties out there corrupting children into being left-handed. It was that we stopped forcing people not to be left-handed.
Okay, but it's different from if you gain social points from being left-handed. So like right now we have sort of this oppression Olympics where like virtue is in being the oppressed class and vice is in being the oppressor class. And you gain points in a lot of social circles from, I mean, it used to be, I'm gay, and that would gain you points because now you're one of the oppressed class, and now it's, I'm trans, and that's becoming the trendy version of something that you can pick, at least, apparently, that gains you a virtue in that perspective.
Because being gay isn't enough anymore?
But that's because oppression and victimization
especially if you're male and white.
That's because victimization and oppression have been turned on their heads to mean what the other used to mean, right? We've managed to define power in a way that allows a person to call themselves a victim while having an inordinate amount of power over others.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So the power that exists in the United States political system today, it's all about being the weakest person, the weakest and most unable to defend yourselves against the evil patriarchy.
Well, because you're the one who's then going to stand up for all the other weak people.
Right.
Which obviously there are more of than there are strong, powerful people.
But the ultimate irony, and that's the biggest hint of a decline in Western society that I can tell, is that we've turned victimization into something that is a virtue and that provides power over others.
Yeah.
So it used to be, it's a bad thing to be a victim, but now people actively want to be victims.
They make it a whole part of their identity.
That's the entire reason they created that gay choir video, was so that they could justify the feeling of being victims. So now they got those death threats they wanted, those death threats that they probably had never received at any point in their lives. Now they got them. Now they can play the victim card. And now they can use that as political leverage to get what they want, because victim now means oppressor.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com. Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
On March 16th this year, government task forces violently raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested. 4 were released on bail conditions, but Ian Freeman was held hostage for 69 days. Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, remains captive. We've consulted attorneys who say no crime even appears to have been committed. But that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, resulting in a violation of our and your First Amendment rights. You can visit thecrypto6.com to help, but as importantly, contact other media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for cryptocurrency use well into your future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You're welcome to join the discussion. It's 603-283-6160.
Only if you're respectful to the hosts.
Well, he doesn't
on the phone.
He didn't even have to be respectful. He just had to prove that he could go 30 seconds without swearing, and clearly that was too much for him. I'm pretty sure it's James. It doesn't sound like him, really, but the behavior, the fact that he's now called 4 times.
A copycat caller.
This is the James with like 17 Deweys, right? Like
I think it's like 23 now.
23 now? Okay.
Yeah.
48 Deweys.
114 last I counted. That dude he clearly can't stop drinking and driving, and he clearly can't stop drinking way too much to be calling radio shows because he can't. Look, dude, if you can't get through the screening without cussing, I'm not putting you on the radio because that would be stupid. But we've got
3 Ds: drink, dial, and drive.
We've got Star Child back talking about the Gay Men's Choir. Star Child, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, so the point I wanted to make with that, whole thing about the Gay Men's Chorus, was there's a couple different, I think, things, or there's several levels, going on with the song, and it helps if you have some sort of background or exposure, not necessarily just to gay sort of drag queen stand-up performance, comedy routines, and also musical theater, which a big portion of the gay community is into. And clearly, when I heard that song, it's a song. It's like something that you would hear in a musical. And on some level, yes, they mean it. But on some level, also, it's like a caricature of itself. And humor works in many cases. As you were pointing out before I came on about the horribly funny and things which are really dark humored, but you and many others, including myself, tend to find humorous. And part of that is talking about the forbidden. And one of the huge taboos and hangups in our culture is anything even closely related to children and sexuality. I mean, some people are so, the other conversation you guys were having the other day about a week ago or something, the guy who dressed up as the rainbow monkey, or maybe that was part of the same show anyway.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
It was on the same show that we discussed the Gay Men's Choir, if I recall correctly, but it was a very different phenomenon. The two were not related. They were just two very weird things that happened at the same time.
I understand that. I understand that. The point I was going to make about that is that so some guy comes in, with bare buttocks and, a fake genitalia hanging off the front of a monkey costume.
A rainbow monkey costume.
A rainbow monkey costume, whatever the color, it doesn't matter. But the point is that nudity in and of itself is not harmful to anybody. We're all born nude, the idea that the kids are going to be harmed by seeing genitalia is just, part of this whole taboo. And so part of what I think did make the Gay Men's Chorus video funny is that they're messing with that taboo. They're saying, yeah, we're gay and we're coming for your kids, but they're putting a twist on it, so it's not quite what you think it is. And, they say, oh, it's really about tolerance and so forth. And they're not thinking in terms of the whole compulsory education and, stolen tax dollars being used to indoctrinate kids and so forth.
Yeah, I didn't think they were either. That's why I didn't.
Oh, I'm sure they were not aware of that implication in what they said, which is why they said it. But to a lot of people, that is the implication. And because that's a legitimate threat. Yes. And I mean, I think a lot of the dark humor, it really serves to reinforce where our social boundaries are, to be like, yes, that is funny because that is absurd. And it reinforces that certain things are absurd. Now, the gays coming for your kids is to them not absurd.
From their perspective, coming after the kids is absurd because they're not thinking about the reality of the stolen tax dollars and the indoctrination and all that. They're thinking about the ludicrous fears that some people have that being around gay people is going to turn them gay or turn their kids gay or this kind of thing. And that's what they're making fun of.
Yeah.
And if you look at Randy Rainbow, I don't know if any of you have all heard of him. He does a lot of YouTube videos. In fact, when I first heard the song, before I actually went and looked at the video, I thought it was him singing because the voice is very similar. The style is similar. And he does a lot of really, I think, wickedly funny, but also in some cases very smarmy, mean-spirited attacks on President Trump, doing musical interviews with him and stuff like this. And it's of a kind with that stuff. And it's not that this is somehow unique to gay culture. Like Doug Stanhope, if you've ever seen him, he's a very wickedly funny libertarian comic. He goes to some very dark places, telling jokes about babies and all sorts of things, that are terribly taboo. And a lot of times he means what he's saying on some level, and that he means what he's saying, but he's also doing it in a way that makes it funny. And I do think that's what was going on with the Gay Men's Chorus. I mean, they need to be educated about the realities of government and state coercion and all this, and to think in those terms, I think. But at the same time, I don't think that was their intention. I feel like you all sort of made them out to be a little bit more consciously malevolent or something like that than was actually going on.
Well, are they? I don't understand how they
have
could
an
be
agenda.
Unaware of the accusations that the progressive left, however we want to characterize it, has taken over the education system at the elementary, high school, and college levels, and is using that to push.
Well, they think they're the underdog by definition. Well, and because of that, they can't see that.
And also, the entire concept of cancel culture allows for that, right? Like, people get canceled because they say something that they are unaware is, going to offend a great number of people. Like, I was reading an article earlier today, like a mother invents a device that the child rides around on and sweeps up as the child is riding. And they called it like Mommy's Little Helper. And it was fine in the United States. And then they went back to Australia to market it. And oh my gosh, the uproar because it was insensitive towards stay-at-home dads, right? Like, how could you know, right? Their mom.
Oh, see, because I expected the uproar to be about child labor.
I expected the uproar to be about drug use.
I don't even know why that was.
With your mother's little helper.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No.
So they got upset because it was exclusive.
It was excluding the vast number of stay-at-home dads who this product could benefit, and they wanted to get rid of the mommy part of the title. So my point is that people aren't aware of the grander culture.
Victimized.
What's
Everybody's looking for justifications to be victimized, as I was saying earlier. It is a power currency in our culture, and kind of a sick one. I mean, we've gone overboard with it. But on the other hand,
that's true power to be able to look at a tweet and say this offends me, and have that person deplatformed. That's a level of power that person who said that thing doesn't have.
But it's entirely plausible that the gay choir did not know that this was going to have the long-standing implications that it did.
Well, they were intending to be incendiary, and they achieved that result. Or at least, as far as I can tell, they only did it to troll.
Okay.
And troll achieved. Well done. We're still talking about it.
Prizes.
What are your thoughts? 603-283-6160. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Sarah Walton. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has visited the scene of devastating floods in Germany that have claimed the lives of at least 180 people. Rescue operations are still underway while more heavy rain is hitting the region. Our correspondent Trent Murray is in Germany.
Well, there remains an absolute extraordinary amount of debris and destruction littered across this large area of northwest Germany. These floodwaters first hit the region on Wednesday, and ever since then, rescue crews have been desperately trying to search the area for survivors. Chancellor Angela Merkel visited the region on Sunday, and she was visibly shocked herself. She, in fact, said she doesn't think there is even a word in the German language to describe how much destruction there is.
At least 30 people have died in Mumbai after torrential rainfall triggered landslides, causing a wall and several houses to collapse. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued a warning that more heavy rain is on the way. Rebecca Bundhun reports from Mumbai.
India's financial capital over the weekend was hit hard by very heavy rainfall, which caused flooding in many parts of the city. A landslide led to a wall collapsing on several houses, while other homes gave way in another suburban area due to landslides. Rescue teams worked to free those trapped under the rubble. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted that he was saddened by the loss of lives and promised financial compensation for the families of the victims. It's currently the monsoon season, which leads to hundreds of deaths in India each year. Rebecca Bundhun, Mumbai.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has gone into self-isolation after the country's health minister tested positive for COVID-19. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, is also going into quarantine, even though they've both been fully vaccinated. The pair sparked anger by initially saying they wouldn't self-isolate and would instead take part in a pilot scheme being run in the UK that allows a select few people to take part in daily coronavirus testing instead. Boris Johnson released a video statement shortly after the U-turn.
We did look briefly at the idea of us taking part in the pilot scheme, which allows people to test daily, but I think it's far more important that everybody sticks to the same rules, and that's why I'm going to be self-isolating until the 26th of July. I know how frustrating it all is, but I really do urge everybody to stick with the programme.
Despite his quarantine, the Prime Minister says the country will press ahead with plans to lift coronavirus restrictions in England on Monday. Facebook has hit back at claims by US President Joe Biden that the social media platform is killing people by allowing the spread of misinformation about coronavirus vaccines. The company's vice president, Guy Rosen, said in a corporate blog post that 85% of national Facebook users have been or want to be vaccinated against COVID-19. The company claims they've introduced rules against making false claims about COVID-19 and its vaccines. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. If you want to join the discussion, you're welcome to 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
Beagless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
And I want to change gears here and get into this story about this woman who has spent 7 freaking years of her life trying to convince the IRS that she is spending her living life trying to convince them she's not dead.
And first question is why? Like, if you're not being harassed by the IRS for money, just let it go.
Because you can't pass a background check.
Okay.
Ever. For anything. Like, get a job? Nope. You're officially dead. Sorry.
Oh.
Credit rating?
Right.
Sorry. You're dead. You must be impersonating someone who's dead.
Is it really the IRS who makes that determination?
They have they have enough sway over the financial market that if they say you're dead, then that's what everyone goes with.
Okay.
The unfortunate mix-up began with her mother's death, and 7 years later, the situation has not been resolved, causing a tax nightmare for the woman and her father.
And you got to wonder why this is so difficult. Why is it so hard to convince the IRS that you're not dead?
You're not you.
You would think being physically in the presence of an IRS agent with whatever government ID they issued you would be enough to convince them that you're not dead.
So,
well, have you heard of Vogons?
No.
That's a shame. It's a Douglas Adams reference. So if you haven't filled out the form, it's been filled out in triplicate, lost, stolen, buried for 35 years, and then returned, then they can't actually do it.
It's a reference from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's the one, yeah.
So some years ago, there was like a podcaster who posited a scenario that kind of made sense to me at the time. Said you got two parents who like have two babies and they get the birth certificate and they like swap the forms, right? And so now you have this form associated with this child incorrectly, but it's the form that they will use for their entire life. So their identity has been reversed or mixed up somewhere along the line, and it's just like set in stone. So if you go to the IRS and you go like, hey, I'm her. And they go, no, she's dead. And you go like, no, really, I'm her. I am not dead. They will look for the forms, right? And then whatever you produce, there's no way to prove that that's the valid one forever.
So the legal fiction maintains the deceased status because legal fictions have no relationship to reality.
Right.
Well, it sounds about like how the government operates.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, in our language, if a person stops breathing, they die.
Yes.
In their language, a person never had to breathe to begin with and can exist in multiple spaces at the same time.
Yeah, well, their system is removed from logic and reason.
Right.
Because it's an insane belief system that glorifies violence against others.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're saying, I am alive and I am she, how do they know you're telling the truth? What document can you produce? Because they've already got the death certificate in hand.
Well, besides, just because you're alive doesn't mean that you're not also dead, legally speaking.
Okay. As a summer camp counselor, 25-year-old Samantha Dressig is full of energy and has an important outlook. Quote,
so she's 25-year-old. Yeah, she's 25 now. So she spent,
in the article.
She spent some of the prime of her life fighting with the IRS about whether or not she was alive.
I mean, I don't know if it's a daily fight, right? Like they take time to turn in forms or whatever.
Well, it probably makes the rest of her life difficult, as Lee observed.
Right.
Being unable to get a job or anything like that.
Bank account,
Yeah, that would be very difficult.
Life is short. You never know when it's going to end, she said. According to the IRS, hers ended 7 years ago. The last actual person I had spoken to from the IRS, and I quote, wow, you're dead all over our system, Dressig said.
How professional. Wow. Yep, it says dead here, and it says dead here on this mainframe, too. I don't know what to tell you. You're clearly dead.
See? And here we go. The morbid mix-up began when she tried to file her taxes in 2014, the same year her mom passed away of ovarian cancer. So just stop trying to file those things and you're okay. She believes the government has them confused, even though they don't share the same first or last name.
I wouldn't put it past the government to be that easily confused, but by what method could they have gotten confused if it wasn't? I assume they must have the same name then.
No, not
apparently.
They don't share the first nor last.
Now, what I wonder is, has anyone ever defended themselves in court under the auspices of being dead?
I could not have committed the crime, Your Honor. IRS said I died 7 years ago.
Well, right. And I mean, especially tax evasion. Like, I couldn't possibly have committed tax evasion because I'm dead.
That's why I don't know why she wants to fight this. I mean, I hear your points about, ease of access and whatnot, but they say, nope, sorry, this account is linked to a deceased person.
So there has to be some bit of information that she shares with her late mother. It's obviously not going to be birthday.
Or it could be that she's the one that's assuming this has anything to do with that. And it just was happenstance that they clicked over to deceased at that time.
True.
And now this is causing problems for Dressig's father's tax return, with the IRS saying he's trying to claim a deceased dependent. Because again, she was like 18 at the time. During her only
James, you're on Free Talk Live. Oh, it looks like we lost you. Sorry, only one call per night. Try again another night. Oh, and I accidentally hit the dump button anyway. I meant to hit the end call button. One call per night, James. You know the rules.
During her only face-to-face meeting at the IRS Taxpayer Assistance Center, she was promised this would be fixed. That was before COVID, Dressig said. She has been ghosted ever since. So CBS 2 called to find out how this could have happened.
It was thunder. Rare here in New Hampshire.
That was a big boom, man.
That was a big boom.
She's definitely not dead. I just spoke with her, Layton told an IRS agent. Her last letter from the IRS says, these situations may take some time to resolve.
So does the IRS have the mother listed as alive? Or is she also deceased?
Article does not say. And it's just about over.
So this girl can't file her own taxes. And
her dad can't claim her as a dependent because she's dead.
But she's very clearly not dead.
Clearly not dead.
I suggest that she join the counter economy. Move into the gray market.
Well, she doesn't have much choice.
Yeah, she would have to in order to live her own life her own way.
One of the benefits of cryptocurrency, of course, is that she doesn't have to get a bank account in order to utilize cryptocurrency. She alone would control her fortune.
And again, if we're only talking 7 years ago, that was definitely availed to her at the time. This has been around for over a decade now.
Well, it's certainly more available now than it was then.
Yes.
But, it's stupid to think that you could have a living person fighting with the IRS for 7 years just trying to convince them that you're actually alive. Well, that operates at a level of insanity. And
no.
Bureaucracy runs
You're
slowly.
not convincing them that you're alive. You're convincing them that this person is alive.
This legal fiction.
Bingo. And you can't actually convince them that this legal fiction is alive without documentation to that effect.
I understand that, but I just want to stress to the average person that, look, if someone came up to you and said, hey, I'm not dead, here's my ID, here's me, I'm clearly alive, any sane, rational person would go, okay, yep, you're alive. Checks out. Your story checks out. But bureaucracies don't operate in any level of sanity. You have to be insane to look at a person who's trying to convince you they're alive.
And wants to pay taxes.
And wants to give you money and say, no, I just don't believe that you're alive. You have to be insane.
Who in the IRS can uncheck that box, right? It can't be that hard.
Well, apparently it's all over the system.
Well,
she's dead all over the place.
But someone there has the authority to go okay, active account again, right?
You would think someone would be
that
able
simple.
To. But it's a matter of dealing with the bureaucracy and reaching that level of authority within the bureaucracy instead of, we're going to put you on hold for 8 hours, call back tomorrow.
Well, she's clearly an illegal alien trying to get the Social Security benefits of a dead American.
Well, and what's their motivation? They have no motivation to be reasonable in any way, shape, or form.
No, because they run the United States for all intents and purposes. What are your thoughts? How would you convince the government that you're not dead when they insisted you were dead? 603-283-6160. More coming up. This is Free Talk Live.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. Take control of the airwaves. Unless you're going to call and threaten me and say nonsense. But with you tonight, it's Arya.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
And we didn't actually get into the subject in much detail. We sort of chased a rabbit hole for a bit, and then we had callers, and then we...
Physics, man. Who understands any of that?
Yo.
No one. Anyone who thinks they understands physics severely underestimates the subject. I think it was actually one of the earlier quantum mechanics physicists, I think Schrodinger, who said that. Anyone who claims to understand quantum mechanics is...
I was going to guess Maxwell, but, you know.
I don't remember exactly which one it was, but yeah, no one understands it. I mean, the standard model alone is a mathematical equation beyond the comprehension of... Well, it's beyond my comprehension, at least.
I will take your word for it.
But before we got into that rabbit hole again...
Lest we repeat history.
We were talking about this woman who destroyed a blue... what?
Back the blue.
Back the blue sign, which obviously destruction of property, not cool. She should have to, you know, reimburse the owner of that sign or whatever. But they want to charge her with a hate crime. And then we got into a rabbit hole about hate crimes and morality and whether or not it's, you know, Lee should kill me for swatting flies. It's been...
Oh, don't start that again.
It's been rabbit hole-y tonight. Before we got into all of that, though, the question was, it was pointed out that cops, what you wanted to point out that we never actually got to.
Right.
Go ahead with that.
Right. So the whole thing is that she's protected class. Right. So she's being charged with a hate crime. So I at least get the idea of, okay, it is a danger to society to vilify and dehumanize people on the basis of things that are inalienable characteristics like your sex or your race or things like that. I get that.
So
now being a cop,
you have to be able to judge
hand,
people based on something, because we all judge people, right? And a person's behavior is a much better way of judging them than whatever characteristics they can't control. They can control their behavior.
Right. Exactly. So like withdrawing the expectations that we have for a human being from someone after they commit a murder, I think is a good thing. Like that's an act that you did. Now it's it might be, you know, questionable to be like, I'm going to withdraw the humanity of all janitors. But it's a different level of thing than when it's, I'm going to withdraw the humanity of all Armenians. Because you didn't make a choice. You didn't make any actions to be that category.
Yeah, no one chooses to be Armenian, but one does choose to be a janitor. I prefer we just stick with police, because people are immediately going to say, why would anyone want to dehumanize janitors? But I mean, realistically, janitors are pretty heavily looked down upon in the United States. But that aside, police actually are the oppressors
Yeah.
in the United States. They are the largest oppression class in the United States. So to get back to the subject of how we've seen victimization and power flipped on its head, we literally have oppressors here claiming to be victims of oppression. That's the whole point behind hate crime laws, right? Is that, hey, these protected classes, they're being oppressed and mistreated by the cops, people. It was the cops doing that.
Right.
It was the cops that they had to throw bricks at in New York.
So let me read this quote from the officer and his report as to why this was a hate crime.
Okay.
According to him, due to the woman destroying property that did not belong to her in a manner to attempt to intimidate law enforcement, I placed her under arrest, the affidavit said.
She tried to intimidate the oppressor.
Right. According to the affidavit, the allegations are being treated as a hate crime, enhanced allegations, due to the demeanor displayed by the woman in attempts to intimidate law enforcement while destroying a pro-law enforcement sign.
How?
Attempt to intimidate.
So this lady's ability to crumple up a sign is potentially intimidating to all of the people with the guns in the world.
Well, they are a fragile class. They're scared of everything.
They are.
I saw a child. I feared for my life. Bang!
It's coming right at me.
Right.
I feel it's necessary to point out that the woman should not have destroyed property that was not hers.
Yeah.
But it's obviously not a hate crime. And if it is, then hate crime laws need to be addressed. If they can be used in such a way as to uphold the oppressor class, the historical group that has always done the oppression, then they need to be retooled.
Well, and I mean,
worst.
Straight up extortion is not a hate crime. It's a crime. I mean, that's like the crime where you intimidate a person. That's not a hate crime. How on earth could this be classified as a hate crime?
The attempt to intimidate law enforcement.
Okay. So if I say, nice shot, pity if something were to happen to it. I mean, I'm trying to intimidate you. That's a crime, but it's not a hate crime.
I suspect what we're going to find is that hate crime legislation never makes any mention about the characteristics being something a person can or cannot control.
It actually usually does, even in the definitions of protected class, which is what hate crime legislation is aimed at. So it usually includes ethnicity, disability, language, nationality, physical appearance, religion, gender identity, or sexual orientation.
That's in some states. Gender identity isn't included in other states.
Yep.
But they didn't exclude any particular characteristics. They didn't say that, this shall only be binding to those things that one chooses to engage in. And the reason for that is obvious, because the government at any level is not going to come out and make a decision about whether or not it's a choice to be gay or straight. And this would require them to do that. Like, no, you can't have hate crime legislation applied to you if you're choosing to be a cop.
Yeah.
Because you have plenty of people on the right who say that gay people choose to be gay, and then they're no longer protected by this thing because they choose it.
And if that was widely believed, then it wouldn't be applicable for group protection. Like, if it was widely believed in our culture that being gay was a choice.
Define widely.
Overwhelming majority.
Okay.
By popular vote. Well,
because it's definitely not an uncommon belief.
No, it's not uncommon, but it is far from a majority belief.
And it depends on where you're at. If you're in Mississippi, the majority of people would say that being gay is a choice, and they're the ones with the power.
Well, and as you pointed out, those are usually the kind of states where sexual orientation is not going to be in their protected class.
Well, sexual orientation is, because the federal government requires it.
Right.
But gender identity isn't currently required by the federal government, as I understand it.
From the leftist perspective, a lot of those classes are becoming more accepted as a choice, right? Like, I choose my sexual identity, but I also choose my race and my creed and all the other stuff.
See, I've heard about people doing that,
Pretty sure you're not allowed to do that.
But they are, and it might be in jest now, it might be satirical now, but the more it becomes accepted, right, the more it spreads into normal culture, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's this weird thing where people are applying the rules of the internet to the real world. Because, like, on the internet, I can definitely say, I am a 14-year-old black girl with a disability. Yep, you can do that on the internet, and who's to know the wiser? But you can't actually do that in the real world. Because I cannot, for example, write a profile and then give birth.
Unless you're Elizabeth Warren.
But don't say that, because males can clearly give birth now.
Well, one definition of male can.
Yes.
Which is...
It's a strange world we live in. That much is true. I mean, words can be redefined. I'm okay with that. The meanings can change over time. I'm totally okay with that. But if we're going to... I've seen some examples, I think, of people who were like trying to identify as black or whatever, and I don't think I've seen any of them being accepted at face value for that.
Rachel Dolezal?
Was she not ultimately discovered and demonized?
Eventually, but for years, right, just dyed her hair, curled it up a little bit, and put on like a nice shade of spray tan or whatever, and was like, the representative of some, black organization. I forget which one, but
she wasn't accepted for identifying as black. She was accepted because she successfully convinced people that she was black.
Yeah.
Once they found out she wasn't black.
She passed, yeah.
She passed as black.
Yeah. People stopped accepting her.
Okay.
And that's the thing,
race is a social construct, right? I mean, the line between the whitest white person and the blackest black person is just a gradient of shades from one to the next.
Well, and I do think that it's important to avoid a lot of the terrible things that can happen due to immutable characteristics. Like, that is a different category of judgment than things that you can change.
At any rate,
the worst of all is protecting cops.
That is the worst. Cops should not be protected by hate crime laws.
Or at all. Just take away all their body armor and guns, dude.
Well, they should have the same access to defense that the average citizen has, I think. But what are your thoughts?
Not a taxpayer expense.
You can join the discussion over at social.freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth